Here's Brooks getting the edge. Brooks. Touchdown, Texas Tech.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Sanders breaks contain, fires it down the field, and caught by Travis Hunter.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Better 3 for 5 here so far today. Looking in zone, looking for Burden.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Hampton wide open running. 30, 25, 20, 10, 5. Touchdown, Carolina.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Milroy steps up in the pocket. He's going to take off with it, and he's getting the first down and a lot more. This is what he can do. Milroy might have scored.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
This is going to be returnable for Cal. Out across the 20 and out into the open field. And all the way down the sideline. That's Ott, Jaden Ott, who's been returning kicks lately. Touchdown, Cal.
Now here's Paul Catalina and Craig Smoak.
Welcome in 365 Sports. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak here, and we've got some things to get to today. I booked our old friend Edgar Thompson from the Orlando Sentinel on the show. Just wanted to kind of get an off-season rundown of the Florida Gators. Their schedule is wild, but they've got Cormani McClain, which is a big story. They went and got Elijah Badger. That's all good news. But today, really bad news for Billy Napier and the Florida collectives and really kind of Florida in general is Jaden Rashada is suing them now for breach of contract because of that crazy NIL deal. And it's the story that has absolutely everything that everybody was worried about, Craig, and NIL, and we'll talk about that in a second. But, of course, the first things that are coming down is that House versus NCAA conferences, especially the Big 12, the first one, are moving towards signing the settlement, although the A5 is not happy, and we'll see how that goes. But, there's pushback from those other schools, but it looks like the settlement's on its way.
I guess we're starting with the
we'll
settlement.
Start with this.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll start with the settlement. Not Jaden Rashada, but yeah.
That's something that was to be expected. We've been talking about this at great length ever since this started percolating a few days ago, and the signs were all pointing to basically everybody at the power conference level coming to an agreement, being made to sound like there wasn't going to be, even though there was some pushback here and there wasn't going to be anything really stopping this from getting tied up and people agreeing to move forward with it. So, the Big 12 is the first to go ahead and vote for the settlement, and now we await the others to follow suit. And it seems, again, based on all the tea leaves, that's going to be the case. So it looks like that's going to get done here in the next few days, and then we'll see with some of the smaller conferences how that goes. Obviously, after the conversation yesterday about the Big East and how they were feeling about things, there was some question marks there. But that's good news, I guess. Again, this whole settlement thing, the way it's presented, it's not really ending anything. It's ending some level of litigation temporarily, but it's not going to solve a bunch of the problems. So the Big 12's gone ahead and gotten it done. I do think it's good in the long run to wrap this up and then move forward to whatever the next thing is. So check one box, and now we'll see how quickly the other boxes get checked. But, the Big 12's gone ahead and gone forward with their votes, so they're on board, and they are all prepared now to start getting ready to deliver some of that back pay and then go from there. So that's where we are with that, and it seems like a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Midwinter, sports attorney at law, and Garrett, I just sent you a text. He has a wave of tweets. He will be on the show tomorrow at 3:30 to kind of go through this with us and explain it. But if and when the House case settles, it will result in a wave of legal issues. And here are some of the bigger ones. One, the NCAA and the conferences versus collectives, because the NCAA and the P4 are hoping the House settlement eliminates collectives, and they're going to try and crack down on pay for play, but that is going to be a fight. And then he goes into that. Title IX is going to be an issue, so there could be things that arise from the scenarios out of that. Schools versus athletes in the compensation model, and objections to the House settlement, which will be some of those other conferences. Like he said, all future D1 athletes will be opted in under these things. And so if they're not, if they don't think that they're fair, they'll able to make annual objections to them. Employment, state legislation. So that's just 7 things that could come out of this. And this is just closing one door that's going to lead to others. Like they've walked through one part of the maze, and now they have the rest of the maze to go. It's not going to be easy or simple. And so these are the issues that they have to work through, but they're trying to get this settlement done so that they can get to those and start those other legal fights. So I don't know how that's going to work out. Overall, none of us do, but we do know that the non-A5 conferences are upset about it. Jared Mosley, who was just on the show, athletic director at North Texas, said, nothing to see here, folks, just a renegotiated lopsided P4 CFP deal because of your value, yet you get the NCAA and all the other conferences to pick up the settlement they had little to do with and no voice in how the settlement would work. Hashtag P4 math. And good for Jared for saying that, and I'm sure he's not the only one, because this was all on the P4. The A4, whatever you want to call them, this is all about those schools. This is 90% of the athletes, and they got most of the bill picked up by someone else.
Yeah, well, you had a follow-up tweet to further explain. Somebody pointed out that the Big 12 is paying $132 million. The American Athletic Conference is paying $36 million. And that, they've been able to go and get their own money over time. It's not as though they're not getting anything, and yet here they are having to pay a tab for a dinner they didn't eat. They've been chomping down as well. But I understand why, there is the discrepancy over, who owes what and why they owe that and things like that. And, you'll get into the replies of any tweet like Jared's, and you'll see fans of North Texas, for example, arguing with fans of Oklahoma State on why it's unfair one way or the other. But when he was, I guess responded to, and somebody pointed out that the Big 12 made a lot more money than the American, or will have to pay, I should say, a lot more money than the American. He did say, no victims here. Student athletes deserve a portion of revenues. You just can't take 90%-ish of new CFP money, ignore other media rights, and then ask everyone else to cover 60% of the liabilities in a settlement. Bad optics and math any way you slice it. So, yeah, Jared Mosley is letting his voice be known just like he did when we were on this show. And I don't know that it's that's surprising. I don't know all the ins and outs either of the entire argument and why it's exactly unfair. I mean, I've tried to follow along with it, but then I fall down rabbit holes and it gets into he said type of a stuff. So I know obviously schools like North Texas aren't totally happy about it. I also know they're not paying the bulk of the money, but that's how it's kind of being portrayed in some ways, as though somehow they're paying 60% of it by themselves and not the power conferences. As it pointed out, the Big 12 schools are still paying way more. They also bring in way more. So I don't know, man. Just get it settled and move on to the next thing. I'm glad the Big 12 has figured out what their path will be, which is to go ahead and knock this vote out, which they've done, and now move on. And now we await the other leagues as well that are involved, and we'll go from there. But again, another story where it's great to be a lawyer and have billable hours, because there's just so much litigation and so much lawyer talk going on in college sports these days, and here's just another example of that.
Yep. All right, now to the story I mentioned at the top of the show. Jaden Rashada is suing Billy Napier some of the collective, a large automotive company that is part of that collective for breach of contract and, failing to follow through on some of the things they promised. There's a lot in this lawsuit that is almost as anybody could have written out how this was kind of going to go when these things happened. He was, according to the lawsuit, Billy Napier promised to wire him $1 million a booster would wire him $1 million on National Signing Day if he signed with the Gators. He also was given $150,000 by one of the collectives, boosters at Florida, to pay back some money he had gotten from John Ruiz, Mr. Life Wallet, who is the NIL super sugar daddy at Miami. Because he had already committed to go there and entered into an agreement with them for what was close to $10 million. Florida was offering 13, so he switched. And Craig, inevitably, something like this was going to happen. And it happened because of the perfect storm of two teams that were former powerhouses that were desperate to get back on top, seeing a shortcut maybe to getting one of the best recruits and throwing a bunch of money at him, and then having that kid go to the highest bidder and play both of them.
Yeah, it's a terrible look for Billy Napier, I think more so than anybody else. It's a bad look for Florida too, but mostly for their head coach, who at this point is just hanging by a string, you would think, given the off-field embarrassment that's now coinciding with the on-field lack of success. And he is certainly right there at the top of the hot seat list in college football entering 2024. There's a lot to sort through when it comes to the lawsuit and just the details of it all. But yeah, bottom line is that Florida promised him a lot, and it sounds like it was down to the wire. I mean, all the way until his announcement, as far as making sure that there were certain promises as far as the amount of money and where he was going to get that and how he was going to get that. And really, I mean, up until the minute he announced his flip, right, they were still trying to figure out, I guess, some of the details of whether this deal was going to go through or not. And then obviously it falls apart once he actually signs with Florida. And here we are now where not the school, but Billy Napier is right there in the crosshairs, along with those who helped facilitate this deal. So yeah, it's a fascinating thing to read through and get into the details of just the dollar figures. It's not as extravagant as an NFL contract, but it's not really that far off when you're talking like 4 years, $13+ million, and what he was promised or received like $150,000 at one point, and so there's a lot of layers to it. But yeah, he was courted, and Miami had their deal in place, and then here came Florida, who obviously really, really wanted him and did just about everything they could to try and ensure that they got him, and they did. And then here we are, less than 2 years later, where he's already 2 schools away. He's already gone to Arizona State. He's now at Georgia. That's their arch rival of all things. So it's just it's a messy situation. He is the poster child, or one of them, for what you thought was going to happen with the whole Wild West atmosphere and empty promises and people not able to pay their bills or keep their promises and pay what they said they would pay. This is what we all expected to happen at some point or another. It just happened maybe quicker than we expected. And now it will be interesting to see what happens next, which is most likely a settlement, because I don't think Florida's going to want, or I should say Billy Napier is going to want to get into a courtroom and start getting into like the nitty gritty details of, their arrangement, because we talk about Florida State and the ACC or whoever not necessarily wanting discovery. I would highly doubt that anybody involved here, especially on the Napier side, would want discovery to come into play.
And look, he doesn't need to get into a "you promised me this, no you didn't," or "no I didn't" kind of a thing with Jaden Rashada. It's just no matter what. Like, even if he's telling the truth, it's still, there's going to be enough of the population out there that doesn't believe him, especially given how this has gone down, and the fact that, look, the terms of the contract are out there in the public. Andy Staples tweeted them out earlier. In 2023, he was going to make $250,000 a month for the whole year. In 2024, $250,000. I can't want to say $250,000. $250,000 a month for Jaden Rashada. I mean, I guess I'm not surprised. That's still crazy to me, though. Like, that's insane. Then $291,666 a month in 2024, $375,000 a month in 2025, and $195,833 in 2026 per month, which probably means he was not expected to be there in 2026.
Well, I mean, if you're paying a kid $250,000 a month, he damn sure better be an NFL prospect and have the opportunity to go pro after 3 years, because otherwise I don't know what you're paying him for. I mean, that would seem to me to be the type of prospect that's commanding that type of money as one that's likely to be gone after 3 years. But who knows? We don't have a full picture of who all's been offered what and who all's making what, but we now have a different glimpse into exactly what's going on. Some of this has been talked about, some of this has been reported or alluded to, but to see it in actual writing and the monthly breakdowns and all that is very interesting. And so, yeah, Billy Napier, not the only one, obviously, with the lawsuit being attached to him, but also their former NIL director, Marco Castro Walker, and also Hugh Hathcock, who was the big NIL, or not the big NIL, but the big booster, right? Mm-hmm. I was reading a bit about him and how he was involved in this. So, yeah, all three of those parties involved in this lawsuit, and it would lead you to believe that, not just Napier, but everybody involved would want to go ahead and try to handle this as quickly as possible and not make it any dirtier than there already needs to be, because there's plenty of dirty laundry out there now. And it's a bad look for Florida. It's just not a lack of institutional control, but it seems to me like looking for a lack of program control in some ways. Just with Billy Napier right now, it doesn't feel like he's got his hands firmly on the steering wheel, and this just makes it look even more that way, even though it happened a little while ago. They've got a great quarterback now in DJ Lagway, but is he going to be around to see that? They better win games this year, because everything else has gone sour, and this is just another kind of black eye. And it already was. It already was a bad look. It's just that now you're pulling the scab off of it, and now it's bleeding again, and you're like, oh, God, okay, how do we stop this bleeding? This is a very interesting move, and one that I think we all expected at some point or another, like I said, when it came to NIL dealings and school collectives and promises made, promises not kept. We figured we'd cross this road, and so here we are with Jaden Rashada, who was kind of the one that got it started in so many ways anyways, with the big money that was attached to him from the beginning. So, this is very interesting stuff, and again, not a great look for Billy Napier. Even though Florida's not being sued itself, it's a lot of the people involved with them. Yeah,
they essentially are. They're not directly named, right, but your head football coach is getting sued. You're getting sued. That's kind of how it is. I mean, he did this on behalf of your university. Yeah. He didn't do it for somebody else. This isn't like he's suing Billy Napier for something that Billy did at a previous job, and it's just now coming back up. This is something he did at that job. So I think they're off on a nice little technicality there, but they're certainly feeling it, and they want this to go away. They want recruits to start thinking about how great it is to be there if they're going to come. And right now, this is just going to hang over them. And for Billy Napier, it's been little misstep after little misstep, that turned into kind of big ones. And he was not, to be fair to him, he was not stepping into a situation where they were churning out the talent like they were in the Urban Meyer era, but they'd also been through several head coaches since Urban Meyer, and he's now just part of that, but clearly kind of right now a little bit in over his head when it came to all those things happening. And with the schedule they have, it's really going to be hard for him to come out and say, this team's better and will be better next year, given the fact that what they have coming back is maybe a little, better than it was, but I mean, that schedule is just tough. So I wouldn't expect anybody to have a good year, especially down the stretch with that they got.
Well, as far as the lawsuit goes, he's seeking $10 million or excess of $10 million in damages because he was promised $9.5 million with his original Miami deal that John Ruiz had put together. So he lost that money as a result when he flipped to Florida. And so now, because Florida lied basically in their promise of what they were going to pay him, he's looking for that money Miami was going to give him, and he lost out on those wages. So seems like there's a simple solution is you go write a big old check if you're Florida, you're Billy Napier, however that would be handled. Again, since Florida's not directly named in the lawsuit as one of those that's being sued, but He was. It's funny to see like that. Ruiz had already. I mean, he was already making six figures in high school. I mean, Ruiz had already cut him a fat check for $150,000. So, kid, I hesitate calling him kid, but he is a kid to me. Has done nothing yet, nothing at the college level. And we've talked more about. I mean, this is Tate Martell territory. We're just talking about a guy for reasons completely outside of the football field. And I can't be the only one that hopes that one day we actually see Jaden Rashada play a full season and actually see him go out there and see why so many people are clamoring in the state of Florida to give him millions of dollars and promises. But, yeah, for right now, he's just like an NIL poster child for what can go wrong with these collectives and with these schools. And so he's going to make several $1 million very, very easily, it would appear, through some type of a settlement or through what's pretty clear cut. I'm sure there's some lawyers that are dissecting this and like, well, actually, that can trim this down to clearer terms and maybe it's not as cut and dry as he just easily wins this. But, man, it sure seems like it's something that will most likely get settled just for everybody's sake. And you know what? As far as the on the field, I don't know what we'll ever see out of him. But, man, college football has been a very lucrative business for the Rashada family, regardless of what playing time he's had or not.
Yeah. Okay, so speaking of John Ruiz, here is his statement. And this comes from John Talty, released this. Now he's with CBS Sports. We're going to try to get him on the show tomorrow. Life Wallet nor John Ruiz had ever had any deal with Rashada that amounted to $9.5 million. Life Wallet had a very small deal with Rashada while he was a big school student in California. Rashada and his father are stand-up individuals. To date, I personally have a very good relationship with both. They both know we dealt with them honestly and fairly, as we always have done with all NIL players. Life Wallet has a track record of complying with all of its NIL deals. Life Wallet was repaid by those controlling the Gator fundraising efforts. While I have my own view of this matter, at this point, the interest of this young man should be the focus. So that's his statement saying that he didn't have that deal. At least somebody believed that he did, and that those somebodies are the Gator Collective.
Yeah, they very clearly believed that money figure. I don't know who to believe. I mean, it's a bunch of people who I trust them as far as I could throw them when it comes to talking about money. So, who the heck knows? Maybe this reveals the truth on that. I don't really care at this point how involved John Ruiz was or not. I mean, maybe that makes for a more salacious story, especially for Gators and Hurricane fans and all of that. This is definitely an interesting story, and there's a lot more detail to it as far as some of the ins and outs, some of the promises, the money. The Florida kept promising that they were going to continue delivering, and eventually came to a point where obviously that was clearly not the case, and they sever that deal, and he goes off to Tempe and now off to Athens since then. So, more courtroom stuff, although this is a bit juicier than the settlement, I guess, although depends on maybe who you talk to. Some people may be more interested in the house settlement or things along those lines, but I'm definitely more interested in the Rashada case and just seeing a lot of the details on kind of how all this went behind the scenes, because it was clearly a mess from the public point of view, and some of that started to leak out for everybody to see, but there's a lot more details now that we've been able to dive into as a result of all the stories that have been written today and that are out there. So, yeah, very interesting to get in. Rusty Hardin being a part of this. I mean, guy, just can't get rid of this guy when it comes to sports stories. I mean, he's everywhere.
He's the dude. If I want to sue somebody for something like this in the sports world, Rusty Hardin's the guy I'm gonna pick.
I mean, it seems that's about who everybody picks.
Yeah, that's who I'm gonna pick. Or if I'm getting sued, or I need somebody to represent me and be, out in front, I'm picking Rusty Hardin. I do think you'll have to be like, there's a little bit of all right there with Rusty Hardin, but he's good at what he does. He's made a bunch of money in these kind of things over the years. I think most famously he was Roger Clemens' attorney. I think that was maybe
I think so.
Yeah, he was Roger Clemens' attorney. I don't know, and he was Deshaun Watson as well.
Yep.
He just prosecuted. He was the prosecutor in the Ken Paxton just debacle that we had here in Texas. So, he's very, very, very well known for those kind of things. But he's the guy I'd want to write up the suit. And I'm very curious with John Ruiz saying no. And if he says no, then he's probably pretty confident, as a guy who has as much money as he does, that nobody's going to be able to produce a document that says, well, here's the agreement that we had. So
yeah, I mean, maybe so, or maybe maybe that's just kind of your defense mechanism is to call out the bluff and be like, no, I didn't. But yeah, I would imagine that if you're saying that, you're smart enough that there's not a paper trail of some sort. And Rashada said that he was debating on whether or not to file this lawsuit, but that he had heard from other players that this type of thing was going on regularly. So he wanted to, I guess, in Rusty Harden's words, speaking for Jaden Rashada, help other athletes, other college football players, other college athletes by filing this lawsuit. I think he's just wanting to get his money more than anything else. $10 million sounds like a great check to receive, and he's already received a few dollars despite the whole arrangement falling apart. So, yeah, he's only going to get richer. Again, don't know how that'll ever come to fruition on the football field at this point, but he's at Georgia now, and we'll see what happens there. But, the most interesting storylines surrounding Jaden Rashada continue to be the off-the-field NIL stuff. So now we'll see, how Napier and company respond, but I would imagine this gets settled quicker than we probably would otherwise think, and just get this off your plate if you're the University of Florida and Billy Napier and company.
Yeah, I do feel like part of me feels bad for Billy Napier. I mean, I know that
I don't think he's like some mad scientist orchestrating this all, and this is all his fault. No,
I think that, from my perspective, it would be easy to get caught up in this, especially with the amount of pressure that coaches, particularly in the SEC, are under. And the fact that this is a fan base that was used to winning and winning big all the time, and it'd been a long time since they'd done that. And, it's made worse by the fact that one of your rivals is now it is now the gold standard of college football in Georgia. They're the gold standard, and they're getting the guys that you used to get over them all the time. The switch is flipped, and every step along the way, how much money that Kirby Smart is spending. He's spending more than anybody on the recruiting budget, and he's got all these people coming in. So you make these big moves. Oh, look, Florida State's all of a sudden good again. Oh, crap, there's another one. Alabama's still out there. We have to deal with them. Tennessee, one of our other rivals. Crap, they're good again. They're paying a quarterback, Nico Amaliava. So the going rate for a quarterback in the SEC, with him getting $8 million, what are you going to do if you're Billy Napier? You have somebody that says, I'll come there for that, and you turn to your guys and go, hey, do you have $13 million? Like, yeah, we got it. Don't worry. Tell them all this stuff. Like, is Billy Napier naive? Is he part of this? I mean, that's all, we'll find that out. We'll talk to Edgar Thompson in 15 minutes about that. Right now, we'll take our first break. We'll come back, run through some of the other smaller stories in the world of college athletics. Also today, we've got Mike Frank. We'll talk Notre Dame with him at 4 o'clock. We've got Craig's Off the Radar, and we've got John McClain. So lots of stuff to talk about today. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul, Catalina, and Craig Smoak. And, kind of a couple things. Craig, this is something that we had talked about before. But Zach Barnett from Football Scoop, frequent guest of the show, and John Bryce, also another guest that we've had on quite a bit. The college football signing period is moving closer to being having a June signing period, moving December up and blocking out the entire month of July when it comes to recruiting. Golly, I've got the hiccups or something today. Excuse me. But so the recruiting calendar is changing. Hopefully this makes it easier for everybody, but this is something that's probably going to be fluid over the years as things continue to change and the schedule and the playoff and all that. But right now, the way they have it is just so ridiculously hectic that 2 weeks in December is – I can't even imagine being on a college football staff when you have a bowl game, the transfer portal, and signing day all within about 10 days of each other.
Yeah, it appears that it's headed that way as far as a change to the recruiting calendar, although it hasn't been fully adopted just yet. But you have to adjust when you have a broader playoff. So they're trying to do that rather than have it like it was last year later in December, which just felt really like it was just in a logjam of traffic as far as like you had bowl games going on, you had Christmas break going on. It was just, I don't know, it just felt like very jammed into the slot that it was last December. And so now this would be moving it up a little bit into December. And also, as you mentioned, that June signing period, which would be new. And, I think there's clearly a need for some shutdown at some point. I mean, people need a break. And so July getting basically the complete shutdown treatment to where there's not even text messages, that you just go and have your last hurrah before the season starts, go on family vacation if you're coaches or players or whatever, prospects. I think that would be a great thing. I think there's too much recruiting nowadays. I think there's far too much recruiting going on. It's constant. It never ends. It's year-round, and I'm somebody who used to love recruiting. The transfer portal has dented that. NIL has dented that. It's still very important. It's still the lifeblood. but not in the way that it used to be. It's not the lifeblood that you have to strike rich on high schoolers right out of the gates, or you're kind of screwed if you miss on a class. You can just miss on an entire class and then just go get new players in a few months. And so I think some of the art of recruiting has been lost now because there's no penalty. I mean, there are penalties for being wrong enough times, but it's not as dire as it once was. I think that's good in the bigger picture for teams, but just the constant turnover, the constant change, I just feel like we all need a break from recruiting every once in a while. And so, yeah, establishing the month of July as an actual full-blown dead period will be good. And then moving December signing period up to the first Wednesday as opposed to the third Wednesday, again, I think is a good idea. Now, what about conference championship games? Well, there's nowhere else to put it, really.
Yeah.
Like, you have to put it somewhere. And last year, I believe it was right before Christmas. It was like the week leading up to it, and I didn't like that one bit. I felt like it was just too late in the month and too alongside too many other things going on simultaneously. So I think knocking it out in December as the regular season closes is a good move. I have questions about how the June sign period would work and what all that would entail. But you know, you get to sign earlier and then not be so concerned about all of the transfers that are going to be in the portal eventually as well. And, you know, I guess it provides more flexibility for schools as well, thanks to what all the month of December and January are potentially going to look like for playoff teams. So I don't think there's a perfect way to do this anymore. I don't think there's any, like, exact solution that makes sense for everybody or will ever make sense for everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know about having like 3 signing periods. I mean, what are we even doing at this point? But, whatever. I'm not going to lose sleep over it one way or the other. But, yeah, it's just the whole recruiting calendar and recruiting in general has gotten a bit wonky for my taste.
And, of course, it's always going to be wonkier. Like, you know, everything they try to do to be more like a professional sport is complicated by the fact that you have to have school. So, like, you can't – you know, semesters, you can't just call everybody.
Pesky classes.
Yeah. I mean, some people are on semesters, some people are on quarters. Christmas break is different it's the same and different for everybody. Everybody's going to be off for Christmas and New Year's, and somewhere around that, how close you go to when you actually leave and then when you actually come back is different. Some people have a longer fall break. Some people don't have fall break at all. There's all these different things. So you can't just call up all the schools and be like, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're all in the same system because what works for one doesn't necessarily work for another. Everybody's different. So that's always going to complicate it. And yeah, there's just no, like you said, Craig, there's no good way to do this anymore. There's just got to be, let's find the best way to do it. And for quality of life, because you have to save coaches from themselves. There is such an impassioned base of coaches who are dedicated to winning and making sure that they're ahead. You have to keep them, like, you're going to have to restrict them a little bit more. Because if you told them they're going to recruit all the time, now not everybody's going to love that, but they're going to be coaches. Look, if you told Kirby Smart 365 days a year you can call recruits, guess what Georgia staffers are doing? They're calling recruits every single day. So you've got to –
there's basically there's no rules. So now staffers are allowed on field. There's an unlimited, basically number of those. I mean, I would assume that – Kirby Smart doesn't have to do too much, but yeah, his staff would be well oiled to go year round, 365 days if need be, recruiting all the time if that's what it called for, and they pretty much are doing that anyways. I do think though that again, there's not a perfect solution. This just makes things a little bit clearer. And it also does try and at least address the issue of high school prospects getting drowned out by transfer portal guys because, like I was talking about earlier with recruiting classes, of just how it doesn't feel as important, the actual signing class that you get because it can change so quickly. I mean, it is important, don't get me wrong, but it's just not the same as when you knew these guys were going to be around and getting developed. Like now you're like, okay, I hope we hold on to him for 12 months before somebody else comes calling or before he decides he wants to go somewhere else. I still don't know how you avoid that. I mean, I still don't know how that's changed at all, but I do like moving it up earlier in December. I do not really love 3 signing days. I just feel like that's overkill, but that's what it's going to look like. And with the June signing period, I know that's, again, beneficial for the high school athletes, at least the way that it's being framed, and also that you have a clear, like, hey, just the month of July is a dead period rather than late June to late July like it is right now. It just be, hey, July's off limits. So there's some needed carved out time there that's just very black and white and simple for everybody to follow. But I think I probably had the same question as a lot of other people. If you sign in June and then your coach is fired, what happens? So what's the freaking point?
Yeah.
Hey, I signed in June. I'm about to be a senior in high school. The coach at Florida just got fired, so I'm free again. Like, I don't know. I don't know how that really solves much of anything.
It will probably benefit the teams where, like, look, Kirby Smart's not going anywhere. He'll probably do well. Those guys. But
those guys have all the advantages and only continue to stack more as the days go by.
But if you're Billy Napier, then maybe you probably don't score on as much of those, even though you'll get some. But maybe some of the ones you really want will be like, I don't know, coach.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be great for those who just want to sign and get it over with.
Yeah.
And then the ones that are probably on the fence and have any seed of doubt or that highly recruited, right, they'll just wait and they probably won't be signing in June. So that solves some of that issue. But for those that do, like, don't think that, just take it to the bank. They're signed, sealed, and delivered. Like, there's always the chance that, just like anybody else, the coaching change happens in the months that follow, and then they are, potentially, released from their NIL or their NLI and back on the market. But again, that's just nitpicking, kind of looking at the holes in this. But that's to be expected because, like I started off saying, there's no exact way to do this. There's no perfect way to do the signing calendar and the recruiting calendar and have it line up for everybody in a perfect way. So they're at least trying to address it. They're trying to address the portal taking precedent over high school prospects or JUCO prospects. They're trying to clear out December a little bit more with the expanded playoffs. So, tip of the cap for trying. We'll see what that looks like. Not official, but it does appear like it most likely will be. So, just more changes to learn about and expect moving forward.
When we come back, Edgar Thompson, Orlando Sentinel, joins us, and we'll talk about Jaden Rashada. We'll talk about some other things too, but Jaden Rashada is the first thing on the menu for Edgar today. This is 365 Sports.
TexasBeefHouse.com marketing director had an incredible online auction, live auction, of course, in the month of April. There'll be another one just around the corner. But May, people start to get out on the grills. The weather's cleared up. You got a special throughout and some ideas for the month of May.
So May, we consider May, June, and July as grilling month. We've got our jalapeno and cheese patties, our regular Wagyu hamburger patties, our garlic links. Two things that people aren't usually familiar with are our flap steak and flank steak. Those are a large piece of meat that you can cut up and eat with a fajita, or a lot of people will just cut it up and eat like a normal steak. This is our favorite time of the year because it's the perfect weather to get outside and get that grill going.
In the end, did you guys have another great auction? Did it all go well?
We had another fun auction. We had Wagyu brisket at this auction. It was phenomenal. We had so many customers that were so excited. They've given us their feedback on Facebook. We've got a lot of exciting things coming with a new platform that we've got going called Bid on Beef that we'll be releasing in the next couple of months. We're really excited about what the future holds for us.
TexasBeefHouse.com. No hormones, no antibiotics, no steroids. Premium grade East Texas beef from their pasture to your plate. They'll deliver it to you locally. They bring it directly to your door. Farm-raised Wagyu beef. May grilling month. May, June, and July. And there's not a better place to find what you want to put on the grill, whether it's hamburgers, flank, or flap steak. Samantha, there's always that code to get a discount.
Yes, absolutely. Use the code SICK'EM10, SICK'EM10, and get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
TexasBeefHouse.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Welcome back. Edgar Thompson, Orlando Sentinel, who is, quote, riding his ass off, which he always does anyway, but now he has to do it. That's what he said when I talked to him. So we'll keep it tight so we can get back to it. Edgar, when I initially had you on, I just wanted to talk about, Cormani McClain being kind of a walk-on and then what that means and how they roped him in, and then Elijah Badger and the schedule and all these things going on around the Gators. And then, of course, this morning, the Jaden Rashada news dropped. How bad of news is this for Billy Napier in particular?
Thanks for having me, first of all, guys. This is a story that never ends. And we keep thinking it's going to. Recently, Charlie Baker, the president of NCAA, put a pause, at least, if didn't put the kibosh, essentially, on NCAA investigations surrounding NIL, because Florida agreed to a deal of $13.85 million, turns out, with Jaden Rashada, California high school quarterback, in November of 2022. So we're going back a while now. And that convinced Rashada. We're talking about the number 7 quarterback in that class, by the way. We're not talking about Gators just signed the number 1 quarterback recruit out of the Houston area, north of Houston, Willis, Texas, DJ Lagway. He didn't get a $13.85 million deal. So I'm not sure what even happened, why suddenly this young man who's maybe the 50th, 60th player was getting that kind of money. But that deal fell through, but it convinced Rashada to flip his commitment from Miami. Then the deal falls through, and this whole mess was created, which ended with Rashada never coming here, going to Arizona State, and then after a year there, going to Georgia. He's at Georgia now, of all places, right? So this lawsuit drops today, guys, and it is suing Billy Napier, Hugh Hathcock, who's a big booster for Florida, who was involved in the original deal, allegedly, and the former NIL director, Marcus Castro Walker. And it's suing them for this money that the Rashada family never received. Now, we're under the impression, or were, that this contract had an out clause and that it was terminated in early December, so we're not sure what legal standing the Rashadas have, but that's very squishy. We're not sure. So you're getting thrown back into the spotlight again after this black eye. You think you survived, and the NCAA investigation was another gut punch you think's going to go away, and no, here's a lawsuit. So it's not good on any level for Billy Napier, who is 11-14 in 2 seasons at Florida, trying to move past all these missteps along the way to get to this point. Seems to have the operation up and running, seems to have the systems in place, the staff in place, a better roster, all these things seem good momentum, it appears, heading into this pivotal off season, and now you get hit in the face with this. So, I'll sum it up for you guys, but I'm sure you have a question rather than me continue to talk, but I do have a summation here at the end of what I think happened.
Okay. Let's get some questions in, Edgar. What part of this, some of this, has been out, this is not the first piece by any means written about Jaden Rashada and this whole ordeal. What stood out to you that was new information or maybe information that you thought was different previously? Like, what jumped out to you, if anything?
Well, I mean, the fact you're trying to sue the Billy Napier and these guys for $10 million.
Yeah,
it's a lot of. And here's what stands out to me is, why didn't you just nip this in the bud? Okay, you promised this young man something at some point. Somebody did associate with your program. Billy Napier didn't per se do it. I don't know that Billy Napier knew what was really going on. In fact, I'm pretty sure he probably wasn't. And put the kibosh to this thing once it came across his desk, or at least that was my impression. So you read this lawsuit that claims on signing day, December 21st, 2022, Billy told the Rashadas or Rashada's father, Harlan, that they would send him $1 million once he signed. Now, I remember that signing day. We went over there for a 3 o'clock press conference. It didn't start until 5 o'clock. The original handout of that class did not include Jaden Rashada. It's like, here's the class. Where's Jaden Rashada? 2 hours later, Billy shows up. Jaden Rashada, new handout. It's like something happened in that 2 hours and prior to it, I'm sure, and to get the kid to sign. So I don't, it's like it's he said, she said, and it's going to come out in court, I guess. They want a jury trial. I mean, God help us if that happens. It's the last thing I want to deal with. But here's what I think happened, guys. Billy Napier arrived in December of 2021 from Louisiana, Sun Belt Conference school, where he had tremendous success, and 33-5 his last 3 seasons out of 4. That was a school that did not recruit top 100 guys, top 200 guys rarely, and if that, and didn't have a big collective. NIL was just starting, didn't have some big collective, didn't have the resources, didn't have the competition for players you have at Florida. So Billy gets here, and he's got a lot of moving parts to deal with, a roster in disarray, a culture he's going to have to rebuild, all these things facing him, okay? Then the school was not taking NIL, in my opinion. I'm not saying seriously, but wasn't as invested in it in terms of, the operation, the apparatus to deal with it. And plus, the state laws prevent you dealing with these third-party collectives directly. And Florida is very, very strict about compliance. And so this goes back to Jeremy Foley's days. So they weren't talking to these people. So you have people off doing things in this new world, a land without laws, as Billy liked to call it at the time, doing stuff. And it all led to this mess. And then you have an opportunistic father kind of shopping his kid around to the highest bidder. Miami originally was going to give him $9.5 million, which John Ruiz, the co-founder of Life Wallet, who was doing all those deals back then, including with Cormani McClain, who ended up going to Colorado and is now at Florida. You mentioned to open the show. He denies that he offered 9.5, but whatever happened, Florida was determined to get this kid, outbid Miami for him, and here we are, so to speak. So I can't even put all the pieces together. I'm trying to in a story and struggling. I'm struggling even more here. It's just very confusing. If listeners are interested, go read my story here. It'll be, I have one posted, but a more thorough version will be up soon, and see if you can figure it out. There's stories all over about it right now, but it's just more headwinds for a program that already faces tremendous headwinds entering year 3 for Billy.
If none of this happened, they still have the schedule that they have. So he was going to be staring down the barrel of that no matter what. Does this make it, I don't want to say near impossible, but even harder for him to be the quarterback the coach in 2025?
It's just more balance in the scales against Billy. They come out this year, win 7 or 8 games against this schedule, look pretty good in the losses, don't have the chaos of Arkansas on the sideline costing them that game, the no-show at Utah or Kentucky or Vanderbilt in 2022, those kinds of head-scratching, inexplicable performances, get run off the field by, Georgia for the 3rd time. If they win 6, even 6, and that stuff doesn't happen, certainly 7, 8, you got to think, are you really going to pull the plug on this program? I don't know. This is kind of something that happens. Who knows what's being said behind the scenes? It might be a case of we will deal with whatever comes our way. You're our guy until, it's proven differently. I don't know what the backing of Billy is. There's certainly, it seems to be pretty strong. Scott Strickland sat on with me last year at a basketball game and said the hot seat's not even a reality in his mind, but, Scott himself could be on it. So you have a new school president, Ben Sass, Nebraska, former Nebraska senator, who's been making lots of changes here, some controversial, some very prescient. I mean, he's got an AI, institute in place with NVIDIA's name on it. One of the 3 co-founders was a UF graduate. He has all kinds of new colleges popping up, He's pushing more liberal arts than what's going on a lot of campuses. His stance against, protests has been very strong and drawn national headlines. Ben Sass is a visionary and has a way of doing things. And I don't know if the way the athletic department is being run fits that paradigm, but certainly these kinds of things don't help Billy's case.
Edgar, when it comes to Cormani McClain, what's been the response to that addition? How do you view that in terms of how he fits into what Florida already has and what they expect of him? And obviously unique the way coaches are playing around with a roster these days to have a star player like that not be on scholarship, at least initially.
Yeah, Cormani McClain, as I mentioned earlier, was a big focal point of Billy Napier in 2022. He committed for 2023, he committed to Miami over Florida and Alabama. Then he flipped and went and joined Coach Prime out there in Boulder, Colorado. Didn't work out there, played only 6 games, 13 tackles, I think 2 pass breakups. Didn't go as expected and entered the portal. And he's coming to Florida. He's a Lakeland kid. Lakeland produced was a big part of one of the best classes this school ever had back in 2007, when both the Pouncey twins, Chris Rainey, Ahmad Black, among others, came to the University of Florida and helped the team win another national championship in 2008. So a lot of Lakeland ties. Ventrell Miller played there, among others. So he seemed destined to come to Florida, so he's getting a second chance at it. As you mentioned, he's a preferred walk-on, but in NIL, you can just give the kid $50,000, and he can cover all his costs and everything. It isn't like it's really even a thing anymore. So you can have guys who are walk-ons who are effectively on scholarship, but he's going to have to earn snaps. You have a 4th-year starter, Jason Marshall. You have Devin Moore, seemingly healthy, a junior with a tremendous length and skill at 6'3", 198 pounds. Short tackler, a lot of speed. You have Jakeem Jackson, who was a top recruit in last year's class. I played a good bit last year. You got Dejon Thompson, who was another big recruit. They flipped from Ohio State a year ago. To Kwesi Bridges is a kid who started 17 games at Oregon, who transferred in this year. He's 6'3", 190-something himself, a lot of length. So it isn't like Cormani McClain, who's 6'2", $165, who needs some work in the weight room, is just going to walk in and start playing. Now, the kid did have, according to On3 Sports, I couldn't really track down the totals, but according to them, they had 30 interceptions in high school. I certainly saw he had 17 his last 3 seasons at the very least. He's a ball hawk. He's a skilled kid. I mean, he was a 5-star for a reason. But, yeah, I mean, it's a good get. But again, Billy, 2 years ago, there was some, I'm not going to say, I shouldn't say naivete, but but learning curve, let's say, for him. He seems to be learning how to like work the system a little bit because everyone's doing it. And some guys won't. I mean, we're hearing Dabo Swinney wanting to take transfers. You know, Billy's now doing the preferred walk-on thing and to get a really top guy like Cormani McClain to come home.
Well, Edgar, thank you so much for hopping on. I know that you're up to your eyes in it for sure. And you're again haven't figured it out yet, and who knows who will. But thanks for hopping on, and we'll talk to you again after the storm passes.
Yeah. Well, hopefully have my thoughts a little less disjointed. Last time the phone rang, I'm like, oh man, I got to do this interview, and I'm trying to piece it together on my screen here. So. Thanks for having me. Appreciate your interest as always, guys.
Right. Thanks, Edgar. Edgar Thompson at Orlando Sentinel. Check out his column. And like you said, a new version will be up now that we've stopped irritating him.
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot to unpack. It's a lot to sort through. There's a lot of, I guess, allegations in the lawsuit as far as explaining how everything sort of operated. So you got to identify who the key characters are, and then the timeline of it all. It's a lot if you haven't been following it from the very beginning. So here we are at another chapter, what looks like it'll probably be the last chapter of the Jaden Rashada recruiting saga. At least it appears so. He's on his third school, and Georgia seems like it's going to be the right place for him until, you know, he either plays and sinks or swims, or, I don't know, is draft eligible and just maybe hardly ever plays and just finds himself in the pros at this rate. But, yeah, it's a lot to sort through. And if you were a Florida fan, it's embarrassing is what it is. It's just another thing to have to deal with that you shouldn't have to deal with as a fan just wanting to follow along with, you know, your program this offseason. I mean, as a fan of college football, at some point or another, you're going to have some weird story pop up that you're going to have to deal with. But it just feels like with Florida, this Rashada thing's been lingering around them, and now you have another new chapter of it to just have to deal with. It's just a hassle. It's an unwanted hassle, but you also created it yourself when you didn't deliver on what you promised to pay him, and so that's why we're here. Had they held up their end of the bargain, Jaden Rashada would be competing with DJ Lagway for the starting quarterback spot, but they reneged, and here we are, and there's lawsuits. So yay, as if we didn't have enough of those. More courtroom talk in college sports.
Absolutely. When we come back, we'll stop talking courtroom and we'll start talking some actual football and how the Irish look to the future after their spring football. We kind of covered all the power conferences collectively, but we didn't cover Notre Dame. So our friend Mike Frank from Irish Sports Daily will join us after this. This is 365 Sports.
Memorial Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco is pulling out all the stops with incredible deals you won't want to miss. Picture yourself behind the wheel of a sleek and powerful 2023 Dodge Charger or Challenger RT. Right now, you can drive home with a whopping $14,000 off MSRP. That's right, $14,000 off. How about a 2024 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab 4-wheel drive for $11,500 off the MSRP? That's right, $11,500 in savings only at Allen Samuels of Waco.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and, you know, I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texans are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB Your Bank for Life. Member FDIC.
When your business depends on technology to stay on track, you need professional IT services you can trust. Carry On Solutions offers managed IT services, network professional consulting services, and cybersecurity. Carry On Solutions expert team handles M365 and Azure migrations, Active Directory assessments, security assessments and hardening, Exchange migrations, Windows Server upgrades, Veeam backup and recovery solutions, and more. In a world where technology is constantly evolving and security is an ever-ending concern, Carry On Solutions will keep your business running by minimizing risk, downtime, and giving you peace of mind. For more information, email sales@carryonsolutions.com or contact carryonsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Welcome back. Mike Frank, Irish Sports Daily, with us here. And Mike, we've covered all the other conferences, but we haven't covered the majorest of the independents in Notre Dame and how they came through spring. Obviously, another transfer quarterback, Riley Leonard, someone who I think many think would be an upgrade over Sam Hartman, even though Sam Hartman was an upgrade. How do they look to the future of building this quarterback position? I mean, how many one-and-dones will they go get, or does this provide them a good bridge to what will be the future under Marcus Freeman at that position?
I think it's a good bridge at this point. Marcus Freeman has said he would like to end taking portal quarterbacks. That's his plan. They have some really good young quarterbacks behind Riley Leonard. They probably could have gone into this season and played one of them and probably been just fine, but I think that they're looking for some experience because they're going to be pretty inexperienced in a lot of areas on offense. And so I think that was one of the main reasons that they decided, hey, let's go look and see if we can find somebody that we feel like can lead this team, has had a lot of experience doing, leading a Power 5 team. And so Riley Leonard was really their top guy on the list. And I think that Mike Denbrock, the way he used Jaden Daniels, and Riley Leonard are very similar as far as they're very, very good running quarterbacks. They make good decisions in the run game. And I think Mike Denbrock knows that Notre Dame's got some question marks up front at offensive line. And so if you can kind of keep an offense, kind of guessing and honest or keep a defense honest by having a running quarterback, that will help Notre Dame's offense. And so I think that had as much to do with it as anything. And unfortunately for Notre Dame, Riley Leonard got hurt early in spring, and so really only participated in 3 practices and then had to sit out the rest of it. So we're not sure what we have in Riley Leonard at this point.
Mike, this is random, but I was just wondering. I was thinking about Michigan winning a title after long, and just how that bristles the likes of Ohio State. Did that sting Notre Dame fans? The history of that rivalry to see the Wolverines hoist the national championship and knowing it's been as long as it has been for the folks in South Bend?
I can't even tell you. I mean, Ohio State probably more because they've lost to them ugly for the last 3 years. But I'm telling you, Irish fans do not like Michigan, and Michigan fans do not like Notre Dame, and that's just the way it's always been, and I doubt that will ever change. So, yeah, I don't think there were too many fans pretty excited about that at all.
What do you think the real strength of this team will be this year on offense? You mentioned having a running quarterback can help what they they took a minute to get in rhythm last year. They didn't have experience at the skill positions. What do you think it'll be?
it's going to have to be the running game. And they have some very, very talented running backs. This is by far the most talented group of running backs. I've been covering this for 25 years, Notre Dame specifically. This is the most talented group they've ever had. So, and they have what I consider a good offensive line that can run the ball. It's pass protection that's kind of the big question mark going into the season. But I think they'll be able to run the ball. I think they have a couple backs that have the ability to make some big plays. J.D. Price is one guy that has some electricity to him. And then Jeremiah Love. Those are the two backs that are supposed to carry most of the load, I think, for Notre Dame this year. And both those guys have the ability to hit the home run, something Notre Dame's been kind of lacking for the last couple of years in Audric Estime, who was a very fine college running back, by the way, but just didn't have the ability to hit the home run. And you had a quarterback who didn't quite have a very strong arm in Sam Hartman, and then a very inexperienced and young wide receiver group last year. This year, they brought in a couple transfer guys that I think are really going to help, and they've shown that so far in the spring. And just guys got older, and they got a couple freshmen that have come in and played in the spring, and it looks like at least one of them for sure. And Micah Gilbert will contribute and play quite a bit, and maybe even Cam Williams, who's also kind of a speedster. And they've just kind of lacked the ability to get vertical, but adding Chris Mitchell, adding guys like Cam Williams, Jordan Faison, who was a walk-on that really started to come on last year, is another electric player that they have that can get vertical. And so I think that's going to help Notre Dame open up the passing game and maybe get some linebackers and safeties to not crash down so much on the run. But I do think Notre Dame's going to be a pretty run-heavy team this year. I think they're going to have to be, but I also think they've got I think this is going to be one of the best defenses they've had in decades, for sure. This is going to be a really good defense for Notre Dame.
Marcus Freeman is still just 38 years old, which is crazy to me, but 9 wins, 10 wins these last couple of full seasons as the head coach. What's it been like just sort of watching him operate, and how have you seen him, not that there's necessarily been like dramatic evolving here, but how have you just sort of seen him grow as a coach these past couple of seasons?
I think just in confidence, and it's kind of one of those things that you don't know what you don't know. And I think he's learned a bunch, and just trying to figure out the mistakes that he's made along the way. I, again, covered this for a long time. I don't think there's ever been a coach since I've covered this that the fans have been more behind. He's very beloved, and his respect is well deserved. He's a very good person and a very good image for Notre Dame, and very well liked amongst the players, the community, that type of thing. So everybody's excited to see him win. I think for the first time in a while, Notre Dame's administration is very much behind trying to make this thing a winner. They got a brand new building, or I guess an extension onto their building that's coming for about $150 million. They just built one of the nicest indoor facilities, practice facilities. That was just unleashed a couple of years ago. And so they're really committed to making this thing a winner, and they're really behind Marcus Freeman. I think the big thing for him is trying to figure out how to push the right buttons. And the big one, probably more than anything, is road games. And, of course, Notre Dame travels to Texas A&M, the first game this year in August 31st in College Station. And that's not going to be an easy thing. And Notre Dame has not played that well on the road in recent years under Marcus Freeman. They lost to Louisville, had no business losing that game, almost lost to Duke, lost to Clemson. Those are things you just cannot do. And the team, they just come out, I don't want to say flat, but they just don't seem to execute. It seems to take them like a half before they figure out what's going on and kind of get their mindset right. And a lot of people want to blame coaching on that, but I think when it comes down to the game, after a while, it's got to be your leadership's got to step up. And I think that Notre Dame's been kind of lacking in that regard as far as, having great leadership across the board. And defensively, they'll definitely have that this year. Offensively, that's where it's going to be the question mark, is who's going to lead this team. Their top tight end has got an ACL and is supposed to be back for the fall, but we'll see. Until somebody actually plays, you don't know. And he's one of the more veteran guys out there. Notre Dame's offensive line is going to be very, very young. Talented, but very, very young. And so who's going to lead that group? And at wide receiver, probably the guy Jaden Thomas is their veteran guy, but he's always hurt, can't seem to stay on the field. And so who's going to step up there? I think they're good at running back, and we'll see with Riley Leonard. So far, all signs point to him being very, very well liked by the team. And, I think he's a leadership type of guy. But until you see it, it's hard to really say what it's going to be at this point.
Mike, obviously for football, they're not going anywhere. They're not going to join a conference until the rules make them do that. But they are in the ACC for everything else. So how are they watching this FSU, Clemson, and potentially UNC fight versus the ACC, looking to the future of where everything else is going to land?
Well, of course they want to try and massage everything, and you rightfully would if that was your, situation. So they're obviously trying to massage the whole situation. I think they'd prefer for the ACC to stick together, but they've also got a pretty darn good deal money-wise. So they're not hurting like Clemson and FSU. The recent deal they negotiated with NBC has set them up in a pretty good position as far as what they'll be making based off of, being involved in the playoff and all that type of stuff. You got to get there first, like everybody else. But if they get there, they'll be in a very good position. And again, that's a big incentive. $14 million a year is a big incentive for Notre Dame's brass to make sure that they do make the playoff every single year. So they're going to do what they have to do to make sure that they do that every year. But because of the other sports, you're right. They would love to see the ACC stick together, I believe. But I think they also see, like everybody else, the inevitability here, and that is this thing's going to crumble, and who knows what's going to happen, especially with this new settlement coming with the NCAA, how that's going to all affect it. It's going to be absolutely crazy, I think, for the next 2 years, just the fallout of all this and how it's going to impact people. And you're going to have some laws passed and some things are going to have to be adjusted along the way. And I think that Notre Dame has done a good job of navigating the system and the situation to be in a good position when they do have to jump. They'll have hopefully some leverage and be able to negotiate things that are good for them. But it will be interesting to see what happens with this settlement and what it does. I think a lot of people anticipate college football, especially if this super conference happens, which a lot of people anticipate it will, the college football will probably just break off from the NCAA and become something completely different. And I think if that happens, then the ACC could stick together. But that's a whole lot of ifs at this point.
Absolutely. Mike, thank you so much for hopping on. It's been a while since we had you, since the season was over. But thanks a lot, and I know we'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, anytime, guys. Thanks.
It's Mike Frank of Mike Frank's Irish Sports Daily. And, I thought, get a nice little interesting offseason report in between, our legal minutes that we have to do. So Craig and I will be sitting for the bar exam at the end of August.
No, man, I'm going to be glad in about 2 years when all this is over with, and we can just know who's where. Like, it's fun, but yeah, and I love speculating to a certain extent, but I also know, like, especially right now, it's the dog days of summer, so it takes even more precedent because there is a lack of football news. So there is something to be said for having a little nice break, but even then you still find yourself circling back to one of those major storylines, like ending with conference realignment. And that's going to be the case until Florida State figures out, along with the ACC, what the end game looks like for both sides and for them collectively. And same goes for, I suppose, Clemson, although, like, you're not going to have to necessarily, depending on what result you get, whichever that first one is, maybe that's just what creates the end game rather than having to settle every single one of these lawsuits or get to the end of the road with all of them. So, yeah, whatever shoe drops first. I don't think anybody knows exactly just yet what the odds are on who may cross the finish line first. But the sooner the better, just so that all parties involved can move along. I definitely enjoy it. I don't want it to be a situation where in the summer there's nothing going on and you're just like let's preview the season again for the 500th time. So it's good to have those topics, but like the Florida State one in particular now, it's just like it's every day. I found the new loophole, and it's like, okay, did you really? Or is this like the 500th time that somebody's going to, like an actual lawyer's going to have to say, like, no, actually, that's not what that means. You know what I mean? Like just the speculation part of it, wading through all of that has been very interesting. And so I'm looking forward to if Florida State's going to get their way, what that creates to me is far more interesting than the lawsuit lead up to it.
Yeah.
So, like, selfishly, I would just like to fast forward. So, like, are we talking about the actual breaking apart of the ACC, or are we just talking about a partial break-off and they're still intact, or are we talking about it's all hell breaks loose? Like, that's the part that I find to be far more interesting, and so does everybody else for that matter, than the lead up to eventually get to that point, right? So all of the legal updates, I'm like, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Like, to start making the calls and who's going where. It's like, no, we're still in the court phase. And it's like, okay, well, I can't wait till we get to that phase where now it's like, holy S, North Carolina just announced that they're going to here. And, oh, my God, the rest of the ACC schools have decided that they're going to, like, that's the part I want to get to, because I do find that to be far more interesting. But do we get to that point? Like, and if we do, like, to what extent? Is it, as simple as I see a lot of, like, planning for the Big 12. I think the Big 12's got to be on their toes here and be ready for whatever circumstance, but I also don't think it's a given that they're going to be involved necessarily, but they have to be ready for it. So, what does that look like across the country for everybody? I'm fascinated.
That's why I don't think you'll see, that's why the stuff like Gonzaga and UConn and all that is very backburnered, because why would you go do that and then be like, all right, we got Gonzaga and UConn,
well, dude,
more basketball, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, you can have Pitt and NC State and Miami? Like,
at some point,
better,
at some point,
you hit critical mass too.
Yeah, you like, how are you making money?
Yeah,
like, so you have 30 teams and maybe none of them are additive, or they're only slightly additive. So, like, where's the money coming from, guys? So now we're splitting a little bit more of a pile, but with 6 more mouths to feed. Like, and that's the part where, I don't think you're rushing to just go to maximum capacity. You got to be calculated with the moves. And so those are the types of things that, we will eventually find out when the time comes. And I am very interested to know what the strategy of a Big 12 is, or an SEC is, because everybody's getting their ducks in a row if they haven't already, and anticipating, two scenarios. One where that contract is as ironclad as it was said to be, and the Noles can either pay a hell of a lot of money to a bunch of ACC schools that will be more than happy to sit on a big old nest egg and probably recreate a conference that way, or just strengthen the conference in various ways with that boatload of money, or a settlement of some sort, because I don't think Florida State's going to want to pay the full bill, nor would a North Carolina. Or is it just going to cause the domino effect that some people assume will occur? I don't know. I'm still actually, if I'm not saying this based on any actual information. Like, I've talked to no real insider that's actually inside these things. Just going pure speculation. I lean towards, I think the ACC schools still want to stay together, even if they lose Florida State and Clemson. But if it's like 6 schools, well, then I don't know about that. But I just don't know that, like, Duke's going to be like, let's get to the Big 12 now. Well, I don't know about that.
I think they have 3 to 5 schools that, could feel pretty confident about leaving, right?
Yeah.
And look, I put 3 to 5 because, I don't know what Miami's viability is. I think they would have that, but every move they've made so far kind of says that they'd like the ACC to stick together. I think NC State could maybe be in that discussion, but again, they're on a lower tier. But the 3 that we've talked about the most, Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina, like they would have options if they were available. I know that, like, right now you can't say what those options are because it's not.
But we already assumed that. I'm talking about for whoever's left over.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
so if you have the other 15 teams that are left, like,
what are you going to do? You go form a 32-team conference?
Yeah.
Like, or are you just going to go add Oregon State and Washington State and call it a day?
Yeah.
And just be that and have this buyout money that clearly you're going to have loads and loads of money, barring something unforeseen where Florida State gets out of there with, like, you know, basically a 15th of the check that they were expected to originally pay. So that's all.
And again, this all hinges on the fact that if those schools leave, ESPN still gives them the,
and that,
doesn't opt out of the deal. So
yeah, that's to come here in the next few months. So that will also determine it as well. So yeah, like I said, like there's all those things that are interesting in their own right. But like the real thing that we care about is not the lawsuit. We're like the thing that comes after the lawsuit. And so it seems like we're still sort of wading through that and, maybe getting to the end sooner rather than later. But I'm fascinated to see what that creates. And then, obviously Notre Dame, like he said, has got to just be, just aware of the situation at the bare minimum for their various non-football sports because of that arrangement. So, yeah, who knows what they would do. I know plenty of people that still feel like they're going to eventually be forced to do something, but I just don't see now with a new TV deal while that would be anytime soon. Although, yeah, if your non-sports are suddenly without a home, that would obviously cause you to have to make some moves, but I don't think they're going to have a hard time trying to find landing spots if conferences are able to bring the Notre Dame brand on board. But that's a whole nother can of worms. We got to get to the end of this ACC thing to know what direction everything's going after that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we are going to have Doug Rohan from Rohan Law on the show on Thursday, and he'll kind of explain some of the ACC versus FSU things. He's been all over that. So we'll have him because there's a new file. The refiling of the lawsuit, I think, happened in the last couple days. So he's got that, and so that's some new news that we'll talk about here in a couple days. When we come back, an interesting question from the chat room. We'll get to that. And then at 4:45, we've got Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. This is 365 Sports.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations that will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, PettyClinicLowT.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Paul, Catalina, and Craig Smoak. On the chat room from the Dundies, if you guys were in control of NIL at your school, would you be willing to spend more on a high school recruit or a transfer? I'd prefer transfer, in my opinion. Craig, what would you do?
Well, it depends on the position.
Yeah.
It depends on what the team looks like. So there is some nuance, but just for the sake of the argument, yeah, I'd rather spend on a proven thing in the transfer portal than on a high school player that may or may not be what they were touted to be. So, yeah, I would definitely go transfer portal. I don't think that there are certified home runs with every pickup because there's just so many names in there. And like at this point, like Baylor's getting like 16 guys, and it's like, okay, how many of them are going to be major contributors when all is said and done, right? But you're also not investing a large amount in either guy. But if you're putting all your chips into the table and saying like, here's where we need to strike. We need to go get a quarterback. Well, yeah, I'm going to the transfer portal, wide receiver, any position. If you got to win, you got to win now. Yeah, I'm going to the transfer portal where guys are at least a little bit more seasoned, having had bare minimum 1 year in a college football program before being able to transfer. So yeah, that's where I would go.
Yeah, I would spend more money on a proven commodity than a high school recruit, and I think it's dangerous and a slippery slope when you get into the Jaden Rashada type situations of giving a guy who has done nothing yet that much money. And Jaden Rashada says he's here. It's happening all over the place. I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's happening in a lot of places, but I don't think this just makes that collective especially look really dumb in that, like, we've got to pay $13 million to this kid, and I know that Nico Amaliava got 8, and there's other guys out there getting a lot of money over their time before they've even played. But, to get that desperate, to me, it probably means you're not going to be that well off anyway, even if you do get this kid and he hits on all cylinders, because how are you really setting up your recruiting? Because if you're going to do that for him, then everything else, it's not really a way to do it. And if you have a promise of, look, you're going to make some good money, and then as you perform and get better, then yeah, you'll make more money. But I don't think that giving somebody $13 million before they've taken a college snap or even walked into campus is a smart thing.
No, I'd rather give that to Riley Leonard and not have to spend 13, but spend more like maybe a couple, if even that. Like, we don't really know. That's the thing about the Rashada thing, is we've got actual figures in writing, and there's nothing to just really dispute as far. I mean, I know that John Ruiz is disputing parts of it, and I'm sure Florida, the parties involved, may have pushback here and there, but it's pretty clear cut, the offers, whereas normally we just talk in vague terms and assume how much guys are getting, or these valuations that I don't even really know. Like, I know there's a science to it, but it just doesn't always seem like it's 100% accurate, because sometimes you're just like, okay, wait a second, that guy's worth that much? Like, I don't see how that's, like, I get like in a formula how maybe that comes out that way, but that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So there's just a lot of fuzzy numbers going on, right? Like, in terms of the talk about who's making what, and here you have the actual numbers, and it's fascinating to see. So yeah, let me peel off a couple million and go spend that on a Riley Leonard to bridge the gap for a year, or maybe even a guy who's got a couple years left, spend a couple million, 2, 3, 4 million, depending on who it is, and then, I don't know, take the other 9 and go spend it on linemen and receivers and other things. Yeah, I don't know how much a $13 million investment in a freshman quarterback that you aren't assured to keep on campus the entire time, that's just bad business is what that is. Especially then now, like even if he was there and then DJ Lagway's right behind, I just like, how much are you spending on just quarterbacks and keeping your room maintained? That was, that's early days NIL though. You live and you learn. And so I'm sure Florida learned a valuable lesson and they're still learning that to some extent, but I don't know how many offers like that are being thrown around these days. And if they are, I'd imagine it's only the usual suspects that are making the most money that would be able to kind of take that head on and not suffer too much if that were to go sideways. I think a lot of other programs make that kind of investment and that doesn't go right, and then you are up S Creek without much in the way of paddles.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I don't know. I think that, It's been like, this is bad news for everybody involved. Although Jaden Rashada, it'll work out for him unless he sucks at Georgia. But I just think it makes everybody involved look bad. And I don't fault Jaden Rashada for taking an offer of that much money, but it's still going to make him look a little bit bad because he hasn't done anything yet. And I think that's more public perception than anything, but he can come out of this probably smelling like a rose better than most. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, do you have anything else, Greg?
No. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll give you more time for Off the Radar. When we come back, Off the Radar, Craig Smoak.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, the great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
This is Craig Smoak's Off the Radar, presented by Alliance Bank. They take pride in making banking easy. AllianceBankTexas.com.
Welcome into Off the Radar here on 365 Sports, taking a look at some stories around the various sports out there. NBA, NFL, MLB, of course, college sports. If there's news that we haven't touched on or that's of interest or particularly off the radar, then we will try and cover it in this segment on Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45. And there's a grab bag of things because, quite frankly, we've been talking so much about Jaden Rashada and Notre Dame and all of that we don't really haven't really gotten into like some of the stories that are out there. So tonight, for example, we are going to have the start of the Eastern Conference Finals. Just mentioned that right off the top, as the Boston Celtics and the Indiana Pacers will get underway at 7 o'clock on ESPN. Of course, on the other side of the bracket, now down to the Final Four, you got the Mavericks and the Minnesota Timberwolves. That will tip off tomorrow on TNT. But tonight, Game 1, Pacers at the Celtics, 7 o'clock. The start time on ESPN. As it stands right now, the Celtics are 10.5-point favorites in the spread. So for the bettors out there, which we touch on occasion, but it's still just not really a big thing here in Texas yet, because we don't have the full meal deal like so many other states have when it comes to our gambling laws. But for those that do dabble and find ways to do so, Celtics double-digit favorites tonight. So Celtics at Pacers. I know you brought up the Mavericks yesterday, and y'all kind of talked to me about that a little bit, but have you watched any of the other side at all?
Yeah.
Have you cared much about the Pacers? Obviously a great story beating the Knicks, who were very shorthanded. There's been a lot of backhanded compliments for the Pacers of like, give them some respect, and then going on to eventually say, but man, the Knicks were decimated and they didn't have this guy, and then Brunson gets hurt and they don't have that guy. But that's a very good Pacers team. I don't know if they can beat the Celtics in 7, but ought to be a feisty little series there. And obviously the winner will face either the T-Wolves or the Mavericks here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, I enjoyed watching the I didn't watch as much of the Celtics because I didn't think that series was going to be quite as good. And it wasn't. Although the Cavs, man, they gave them all they wanted. I did watch a lot of the Pacers and Knicks. And it's because, I'm kind of a Jalen Brunson fan just overall. I like watching.
Easy to root for.
Yeah, he's easy to root for. I like watching him play. I'm in no way would ever be confused with somebody who roots for the Knicks. I just, I like watching good players play. Like I liked watching Kobe play, but I never, relished in him winning. But yeah, it was just, I like watching good players play, and he's really fun to watch, and he was on a tear. But yeah, they had way too many injuries to kind of really make it through, and I don't know if they could have really withstood the Celtics, especially with Brunson with a broken hand. I'm sure he would have been like, I only need one hand. You're like, no, come on.
I don't know if they would have done it with Brunson healthy, much less with him.
Yeah.
No chance if he could even have played. But I mean, they're a good team. Celtics are heavy favorites. So just anyways, that's what's on tonight. In addition to some college baseball, as I will touch on. But NHL has the night off as they are down to the nitty-gritty with their conference finals as well. They will resume tomorrow. You'll have the Rangers and the Panthers in the start of the Eastern Conference Finals. And then we'll get on Thursday the start of the Western Conference Finals with the Stars and the Edmonton Oilers facing off. So down to the Final Four in both the NBA and NHL. And then baseball, it's your turn, baby. Get ready. That spotlight's going to be here before you know it. But I got to admit, with the Rangers suffering the way that they have, I have not been as baseball friendly or excited as I was going into the season. I'm sure that will change as the season goes along, but man, just life's so hard for Rangers fans. Just life's so hard for Rangers fans. I mean, thank God for that World Series. In all seriousness, that prevents me from being too worked up about early season struggles, but just saying that we're about to hit that time in July where there's like the dreaded all-star break of which there is just no sports whatsoever. So enjoy these last few weeks while hockey and basketball are providing some further ammo as well until they eventually close their doors. Meanwhile, got a lot of other stuff to get to here. And let me track that one down. Was trying to take a look at the Big 12 baseball tournament, and now the link is suddenly not working as well. So I might have to circle back around to that. Did want to make mention, though, from over the weekend. I don't know if you saw this, but big boxing matchup is Alexander Usyk defeated Tyson Fury by split decision to become the unanimous heavyweight champion. Split decision victory on Sunday in Saudi Arabia, in Riyadh, to be more specific. Gave Usyk, who was donning Ukraine-themed boxers, or tights, shorts, I guess is actually what you should say. He eventually pulled out the win, nearly knocked Tyson Fury out, but eventually was a split decision, and this was the first professional loss for Tyson Fury, who, I think in watching parts of the fight that I saw, I didn't watch it from start to finish, but it was interesting to see him get rocked, and then to see afterwards where, I don't know if you saw this or not, because I don't know how many people were paying attention to it, but he tried to say that the only reason that Usyk got the victory on the scorecards in a fight that Fury claims that he still won despite all of the highlights saying otherwise. Now, granted, they're just highlights, but he tried to point at the fact that Usyk is a Ukrainian and that he was wearing Ukrainian-themed shorts as the reason why he got the judge's decision, which I found to just be really poor taste. No matter how you feel about that worldly event and situation, I think that's just being a sore loser. And Tyson Fury is not necessarily the classiest guy on all fronts. I'm not totally surprised by that, but just kind of thought that was in poor taste. So Usyk now the undisputed champion. He had the WBA, the IBF, and the WBO belts, and so he was able to capture the WBC title. So he is the unanimous heavyweight champion, and it's been a few years since that last happened, so pretty cool to see that occur over the weekend, and just wanted to make mention of that because we haven't got to much boxing on the show lately, haven't had much of a reason to. Meanwhile, some stadium news, a couple of different stadium notes that are pretty cool. Penn State has approved $700 million in stadium upgrades, and a big part of the reason why is they are looking forward to hosting college football playoff games. When you think about upgrades and all the money being spent, you may think like some of that's now being funneled, and rightfully so, to NIL. Maybe that won't have as much of an effect on facilities, although stadiums are still awfully important. But $700 million, and a big part of the reason why that, I don't know how much we've taken this into consideration, but you want to host playoff games. And so you need to have the right digs, especially if you are planning on hosting those. And so the upgrades, a rethinking of the stadium as it enters a new era in college athletics, includes widening concourses, new restrooms, concessions, new Wi-Fi, premium seating, which is always a go-to, and it will take place over the next 3 off seasons, due to be completed in 2027. And so due to construction, they will have a slightly smaller crowd for the 2025 season, but $700 million going into stadium upgrades there for Beaver Stadium and Happy Valley. First major renovation since 2001, and the stadium was built in 1960, but I didn't give that much consideration, the playoff aspect of this, but absolutely, everybody's going to want to host playoff games, and you're going to want to deck it out. So there's reason to go to the boosters and be like, "Hey, I know we've asked you for a lot in NIL and a lot in this and a lot in that, and we're not really asking for colored waterfalls anymore. But we need our stadium to be as brand spanking new as possible." So seems like it's the first upgrade in a while, as I mentioned, but big investment on the part of Penn State, and that's paid off by boosters. It's also much easier to do when you're making the kind of money that Big Ten teams are going to be making moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I haven't heard the Big Ten make a peep about the settlement, especially when you are about to roll out a $700 million stadium upgrade. So haven't heard a word, not a word from them. So and they've got the biggest chunk of the bill. The Big Ten does actually. 10% like across the board is the Big Ten, more than everybody else. So but that stadium, it's it's already a great stadium, but it's old. You can't you can only keep the old for a while, and then you've got to spruce it up a little bit. But the renderings look really cool. Yeah, they do. So Happy Valley getting a little bit of a makeover, and hopefully hosting some playoff games, which I'd imagine they probably will, but. The big thing, too, is like the Welcome Center. That seems like it's become a very popular thing, so that's going to be a part of the deal as well. And in particular with the college football playoff aspect of it, or at least I took a second like, oh, yeah, you're going to host college games. Well, what about hosting it at Happy Valley? Like, what about hosting a game in December and what that's going to be like? And so there's also some winterization work that's also being done for the stadium to make that even better for those who travel there in the colder months. So there you go with a little bit of a stadium update. Meanwhile, Louisville's mayor has asked police why their body cam was shut off during the Scotty Scheffler arrest, and a probe has been launched. Louisville Mayor Craig Greenberg said there is no police body cam footage of
of Scotty Scheffler from last week's arrest at the PGA Championship, and he is vowing action if it turns out that protocol was not followed. He talked about it at his weekly news conference and said, "From my understanding, based on the facts I am aware of right now, I understand why body cam may not have been turned on at the initial contact between Officer Gillis and Mr. Scheffler. I still have questions about why it was not on during Mr. Scheffler's arrest, as the body-worn camera policy for Louisville Metro is that they must activate their camera prior to engaging in all law enforcement activities and encounters." So an investigation has been launched into whether department policy was followed, and the mayor is on it, so we will see. But the LMPD chief said that there's an internal investigation and that any policy violations will be revealed through the course of the investigation and will be appropriately addressed according to disciplinary protocol. So who knows if we will ever hear about the end result of this or we even remember. But Scotty Scheffler, that whole situation just weirder as we get away from it and hear his side of the story. And I don't know quite what happened at this stage, but it sounds like they're going to get down to the bottom of it.
But apparently, other people, all other golfers were doing it and going around, and I guess maybe Scotty was just the one that drove this particular officer nuts the most. Like, that's it. And then it was it's a whole weird thing. Like, apparently he ripped his pants. The officer did. No body cam is always going to be, especially now, kind of strange. And then Scotty was clearly confused as to what was going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on. I mean, somebody had been hit by a car and died.
But it's not like somebody, and I know a lot of people said that, but it's not like somebody walked up to the car and told him exactly what happened. I mean, he was just sitting there in traffic.
No, I'm just saying there was confusion because somebody had been killed. Yeah.
So, that's such a weird story and how that went down last week. And, I'm sure that he's never going to really go in court at all for this. Louisville, the city's going to want to make it go away, but because it's so strange. It's just so strange.
Yeah, it's a strange story. So there you go with that. A little update. Louisville Metro is going to investigate the handling of Scotty Scheffler's arrest and the etiquette by those involved, the police officers involved. Meanwhile, I mentioned stadium upgrades just a second ago for... It's going to be one of those days with this laptop, I swear, gentlemen. I mentioned some stadium upgrades for Penn State just a moment ago, but there was another one that I should have included in that, and it's on a smaller scale, but Texas State is going to be renaming their stadium as a part of a partnership with the University Federal Credit Union. They have signed an agreement, the Bobcats, multi-million-dollar naming rights deal with UFCU that will pay them $23 million over the total of the partnership, which is 15 years. So that's a little less than $2 million per year, a little over $1 million, maybe to look at it better that way. But the largest corporate sponsorship in the Sun Belt Conference for naming rights at a football stadium, and one of the largest in the state of Texas, period. So UFCU Stadium will now be the home of the Texas State Bobcats and G.J. Kinney. And they will be making a little bit of coin off of that. I'm surprised we don't see that more often, quite frankly. I'm surprised it hadn't happened here yet. I don't know what, I guess, however close maybe they've gotten to that. I just figured, especially with I-35 traffic, like that would have been prime real estate to plant your logo and say, this is American Alliance Bank, whatever, stadium, and just have 1 million people a week, and I don't know what the real figures are. It's probably more than 1 million, but however many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people driving down I-35 see that bad boy every day, but that's never come to fruition. But Texas State not closing the gap with this deal, but getting over $1 million to change their stadium name. So good move on their part.
And I don't know if Drayton McClain, made that as a provision.
Hey, if you don't need it and you want it to just be like clean cut and classy and not have like a bunch of logos all over it, I understand that. If you're not that way, though, like, why have you not cut a deal yet, I guess? But, yeah, if you just want it to be McClain Stadium and be super classed up, then that's totally understandable, and I'm all for that. Meanwhile, a couple national championships decided the past few days. Texas A&M didn't have to create this one or call back to an era and say, well, this poll determined us we're the national champions. No, they outright are the women's tennis national champions, grabbing hold of that title a couple of days ago. Meanwhile, on the men's side, TCU, the men's national champions, defeating Texas, so bringing home a title to Fort Worth, and that's an excellent program. But, yeah, both major tennis titles are going to be here in the state of Texas for the next year. And I think I finally landed on where I needed to get as far as the Big 12 baseball tournament, which got underway earlier today. Number 7, Kansas beat number 6, Kansas State 2-1. So the Jayhawks advance. And number 9, TCU, speaking of the Frogs, they beat West Virginia, the higher-seeded West Virginia Mountaineers, 5-2. So the number 9 Frogs over the number 4 Mountaineers, number 7 Jayhawks over the number 6 Wildcats in that Sunflower Showdown. So a couple of upsets there, about to get underway, if not, I think already underway. You have number 5 Cincinnati at number 8 UCF, and then later on tonight in what should be a hell of a game, although Texas Tech down this year compared to where they typically are. They're all the way to the 10 seed, but they will be taking on the Texas Longhorns at 7:30 later on tonight in Arlington. So you had Oklahoma State with the byes. So now Kansas will face Oklahoma coming up tomorrow. They will face Kansas State. The loser goes to game 2. So that will be let me see here. Loser to game 3. Okay, so yeah, Kansas advances, and also, as I mentioned, TCU advances in that upper part of the bracket. So just a couple of scores from the Big 12 baseball tournament, and I think we'll leave it right there for now. There's a few things that are off the radar.
All right, good stuff, Craig. Very interesting. Congratulations to the tennis champions. That's a I've been to that when they had it here. That's a tough tournament, man. It's a lot. It's pretty intense. It's tough everywhere, but it's really intense. Very much looking forward. We've got softball in the super regionals now, and then of course baseball will start their run here. This, I guess, coming once the conference tournament's over this weekend, and what that will be. When we come back, we'll kind of dive back into some of the other stories of the day, and then John McClain around 5:30. My top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Memorial Day sales event at Allen Samuels in Waco is pulling out all the stops with incredible deals you won't want to miss. Picture yourself behind the wheel of a sleek and powerful 2023 Dodge Charger or Challenger RT. Right now, you can drive home with a whopping $14,000 off MSRP. That's right, $14,000 off. How about a 2024 Ram 1500 Limited Crew Cab 4-wheel drive for $11,500 off the MSRP? That's right, $11,500 in savings only at Allen Samuels of Waco.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student-athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing is time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
I'll have that rejoin changed. Although he's here in spirit. He already texted us with a guest idea for tomorrow. So, but yeah, Smokey be out for another week or so, but doing well. I have not talked to him today. I thought I would let him actually rest, but he is the worst person ever at resting. If there was a resting championship and he was in the top, he would be the 64th seed. He would lose like in the first round so fast. But he'll be back again in another week. Craig, a couple of interesting transfer portal notes. One of the guys still out there that it's very curious to where he will go is Zachary Franklin, who, of course, started his career at UTSA. He had previously visited Illinois. Of course, last year with Ole Miss, was injured most of the year and did not really happen. So he preserved a medical red shirt and is moving on. But he is visiting Washington now. So it will be interesting to see where he does wind up. Again, most of those dominoes have fallen for football. Basketball, of course, still has the draft guys to all come back. But for Zachary Franklin, Washington, who they need bodies, man. So Zachary Franklin wouldn't be I would take a flyer on him. And I know that, there are some things you probably have to work out with Zachary Franklin. But, if you're Washington and you've lost the players at wide receiver you've lost, Zachary Franklin might be worth a flyer.
Yeah, he's an older guy now. He's 23 years old. Been around for a while. Has produced a lot, and obviously, didn't have lasting power there at Ole Miss. I think that he had a pretty good situation going on at UTSA, but I understand when you got people offering you money and opportunities elsewhere, and platform in the SEC or whatever it was that was thrown his way. I could see why that was enticing and why you think to make that move, but that did not work out whatsoever. So yeah, here he is on the prowl again, and I don't think those deals are as sweet as they were a year ago, fellas. I think that's clear by the fact that he hasn't signed anywhere just yet, and is kind of a straggler now at this point in the big picture. Everybody's pretty much fattened up, and so yeah, he's a great player that's out there. I just don't know what the market really looks like for a guy like him at this point. I would have thought that like a Baylor, for example, would be all over him, needing another receiver, or someone along those lines would be quick to jump up and grab him. Not sure why that hasn't been the case. Maybe he does have multiple offers and he's perusing through. I'm sure Washington's offering something pretty sweet to potentially land him. Nothing crazy, but just something worthwhile. And so, yeah, they definitely have some roster turnover. I can see with especially at wide receiver that you would need some plug-and-play guys, and he would certainly fit that bill. So still plenty of questions for the Huskies, but that would help partially answer at least the receiver equation. And good luck to Zachary Franklin. I think he's a really good player, and he was incredible at UTSA as a part of just the total package they had on offense. And so hopefully he can, light up some defenses the way he was able to do a couple of years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, going back to our comment, just a couple of comments from the chat room about our discussion about transfers over recruits. Paxton says, I'll take a chance on 3 or 4 Arch Mannings. Someone has to pan out. Well, I don't think there's 3 or 4 Arch Mannings out there.
Well, and that's also Texas, though.
Yeah.
I didn't take that question as like, you have the ability to pay multiple quarterbacks and everybody on your position chart money and not feel it. But we're talking about like Arizona State. They can't do that. They can't hold Arch Manning there, and he wouldn't just sit there. Like, that's part of Texas' prestige and also their wallet and just all that comes with that. I don't want to single one thing out because people are so sensitive, but being at Texas, I think, is a draw in of itself. Learning under Sark's a draw. The money's not as much of a draw for an Arch Manning, but I think that's what makes Texas unique in this situation. And so he's not a guy that needs the money. And he's a high-profile recruit, and he's willing to be patient and sit behind Quinn Ewers. So he's not like everybody else, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so, if you had ideally guys like that where multiple schools could have the opportunity to do that, then, yeah, that would be a great thing to be able to do, much like what pre-NIL, we've said plenty of times it wouldn't have worked out this way, but the way that the depth chart was set up with Art Briles, I mean, the way he had the quarterbacks lined up and sitting around and waiting for their shot and understanding why they had to wait, those days are just long gone now at this point, especially for a school like that. So yeah, I mean, if you could pull the Arch Manning card, sure, that's what I would choose as well. But I also think that's a unique situation compared to most people's situations.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Texas can do those things, but the question was, if we had NIL, what would we do? Look, if you put me on,
am I the coach at Texas or am I the coach?
Yeah,
if I'm the coach at Texas, then Arch Manning doesn't need anything. Then that's great.
I can do both, and then look, Arch Manning's a terrible example because he's the outlier of this.
He's not even going to be in the video game because he's not the starter, so he doesn't want even the $500 that comes with that, or to even be in the game. So he is very unique.
And you can't even create him because of the new rules, right? You couldn't create Arch Manning.
I mean, I don't know how they're still going to stop that. I don't know if you can't name a guy. You can't put that combination together. He has to be like Arch Johnson or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're going to do that exactly. And you don't need him to look face-wise exactly the same.
Yeah.
You just need just the character out there. So that's actually part of what I'm more curious about, is them trying to prevent those that didn't sign off on being in the game, which he's the only one that I'm aware of that's publicly known. But
I think a lot of them that didn't do it just didn't do it because they're kids, just didn't return the email.
Yeah, but I guess so. I mean, that's dumb. That's just being a dumb kid, though. Yeah, just miss out on a free $500 or basically free $500. But I mean, I think their situation is unique. Most other places, you're not going to be able to have something like that. So I think you go all in probably on a quarterback. But again, it was also one of those things where, what team are we talking, and what is your situation? Do you have a great sophomore quarterback that you don't have to worry about, and you need to put receivers around him? Well, then I'm going to spend my money on receivers. Do you have a quarterback? No? Okay, well, then you're going to spend it on a quarterback. So it depends. But, I think if you're looking at quarterback and trying to win right away, then the transfer portal is definitely the way to go.
Yeah, for sure. You've got to, you can't do, and look, I know that it's not the Dabo Sweeney thing where he's in control and they're not taking transfers, and we're going to see how that works out. So far, they've not been able to be quite as good as the rest of them. I think, and look, I've talked about this a lot with Dabo and the way that they approach transfers to not. I just think it's to go whole hog either way is really kind of risky when you have all these tools at your disposal, but we'll see. Again, there's not just one way to do it. And Craig, I just saw this tweet from Kelly Ford. Over the CFP era, he ranked the 30 best teams when it comes to special teams.
Oh, God, it's the offseason, isn't it?
It is.
It is so the offseason.
It's the offseason. Right now. And I bring this up for one reason, because, again, it's not like none of this is too surprising. Number one, though, is a surprise. San Diego State was number one. They've had the best special teams. Although, they do seem to get a good kicker. Of course, they had the punt god there and all of that. But, there's teams on here, Florida's third, A&M's fourth, Memphis fifth. I could go on and on. Ohio State's in the top 10, Kansas State, not surprisingly. I will say this, and this is only a thing, and I hope it's not too inside, but on this top 30, Baylor's not one of them. And it's always been a thing when I've watched Baylor of they just, even when they had a coach when they were the best they've ever been, they had a coach that flat out didn't care. Just flat out, if it worked out, fine. If it didn't, fine. We're going to score touchdowns. It doesn't matter. It cost them in a couple games that were big games, but for the most part, that philosophy worked out for Baylor. They won more than it ever won, and they didn't care about special teams. Then they had coaches that did care, but they still weren't, really all that elite at it. And it's just been, there are some places that just get stuck in a rut when it comes to certain positions or things. And Baylor and special teams has been that. Now, look, they could wind up being 31st, and I'll eat my words here, but they're certainly not top 30, and that doesn't surprise me.
No, I didn't know where you mentioned them. I'm like, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they were good when Matt Rule's here, so congrats, Nebraska. I'm sure you've already seen that in some form or fashion. But, I got to write an article on their special teams here in a week or so, and I need to do my research. But, no, I'm not surprised to not see what part of their team would rank in the top 30 based on last year.
This is the CFP era.
Oh, CFP era. Okay.
Era.
Well, that's where I misunderstood.
Yeah.
So, think about the only stretch that they played special teams all that well was with Matt Rule. So that was 3 years, and maybe a little bit here and there with Dave Aranda. So a big chunk of that, or at least a few years of that, was with Art Briles, where, as you pointed out, they didn't care about special teams really at all in comparison to the offensive output. So, yeah, not surprised by that. And it probably cost them some games along the way. And that's one of those where you don't really care about special teams until you have to care about special teams, right? And all of a sudden it's a glaring weakness when you need it most. So I always appreciate those who cross their T's and dot their I's when it comes to special teams. That's one thing I did like about Matt Rule's squads is not only were they just sturdy and they could block kicks from time to time or make a play in the return game, but they made some game-changing plays on that side. That's where you can, like, flip an outcome is with a blocked kick, and they did that on a couple of occasions and were rewarded for it. So I can appreciate those who do focus on special teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get. I just saw a tweet here that's interesting. I want your I want your opinion on. Kevin Clark said this, and he said that for years, coaches have made livings off of lying to kids in college recruiting. And now with Jaden Rashada, they can say, I'll see you in court. I wonder how this does, for people, coaches go, oh man, and I don't know if it's lying or just making promises you can't keep or you're trying to just keep ahead of things, but see Billy Napier and go, oh man, we're going to have to change up how we do this because, Jaden Rashada sues you the minute that somebody else does this, there's other lawsuits out of this, obviously. That could be if there's similar situations.
Yeah, I mean, if guys are signing multi-million-dollar agreements or verbally agreeing to things, then yeah, that's going to have some backing to it. I mean, I've already seen online lawyers trying to, I guess, basically break apart Rashada's arguments, and just so happens they're Florida fans, most of them. Imagine that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, guys.
Yeah.
I am not a freaking lawyer. So I start reading some of this, and I'm like, is that true? That guy could be totally making it up for all I know. So does verbal agreement matter in the state of Florida? Does that sound like a contract? If so, that's not good news for the Florida Gators. But, yeah, I think if you're going to make promises as a collective for millions of dollars to any player, then I think everybody already should have known that there could be some backlash if you don't follow through on that. But now, especially with Rashada's very public lawsuit, then yeah, I guess any program out there that thinks that they can sit there and just lie to a kid, they have another thing coming. That's definitely not going to fly in today's world, nor should it. So that's a good thing. That's I don't know. Is it getting cleaned up? Because were they promising? I mean, yeah. I guess before you could promise guys and they couldn't really say anything because it was against the rules.
Yeah.
And they couldn't transfer as freely. So maybe that happened more regularly than we know. But, yeah, in this era, you can't afford to lie to a guy and not have some repercussions because he can leave whenever he wants to. And also, if money's being promised, then, yeah, go to court and make it an even more public thing. So, yeah, that's absolutely a protection that players have now that they didn't quite have as much beforehand.
Garrett just sent this to us in the group chat from Pete Thamel. A portrait of how difficult it is to build a roster outside the P4. Ohio coach Tim Albin had 21 players from the school's 2022 MAC East Elite title team transfer up or land on a pro roster, 8 players to the Big Ten, 5 to the Big 12, and 2 to the ACC, and 6 to various pro leagues. So... And that's only going to get worse. I mean, as they use it as a farm system. I know a lot of people don't like that, but that's what the non-power schools are going to do. You've had Baylor got DeQuan Finn, this year, and that's kind of, to me, I've always thought of if you're a power school, like trying to find a guy like a DeQuan Finn or power conference school that can play on your level. And you're trying to, shortcut and not have this, long rebuild process with a young quarterback or young at whatever position, that maybe is the best route to go to try to fill those things immediately, as opposed to getting in maybe some fights with other power school players who haven't panned out where they are. I'd rather maybe get a guy on the come up and then a guy on the come down. So you didn't work out at Tennessee. All right, maybe you fit at another power school, but to me, sometimes the more intriguing guys are the ones from those schools on the way up, and it sucks for Ohio, but I kind of see those guys maybe as a little bit more valuable than the ones who, didn't work out at a certain place.
Well, I think it depends. Like, are we talking about just some 4-star quarterback who signed with Kentucky who's had not played a snap, then it goes down a level?
Yeah.
And what are you basing it off on? You go get DeQuan Finn, he was the MAC Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Like, he's got 50 started games. He's got accolades. He's got skin in the game, whereas that recruit still has stars next to his name. And I guess if you're Steve Sarkisian or, people along those lines, a Lincoln Riley, then you know who to spot and how to spot them, and you know who the better take is. But, yeah, I think it's pretty clear that's what the whole thing's based on, is guys moving up a level when they're pretty good and maybe got overlooked, under-recruited, or maybe just got to a certain spot and blew up and had a great career. And, yeah, you were at Eastern Michigan and now Ohio State wants you to play there. I think that's a pretty simple call for most guys, especially when they're also signing a big check to get you to probably come there as well. So the poor I don't want to say poor, but the lower levels, so to speak, the non-Power 4, the non-Power 2, however you want to refer to it, we know the same schools, they're getting picked apart. And their best players, they have the challenge of not only appeasing them just in general, but also then having to fend off various suitors at all times, like we've heard Jeff Traylor talk about constantly. So, yeah, that's part of the issue of being the smaller guy in today's landscape. You already had basically every disadvantage in the books working against you, but I think you have even more of them now with all of the rules or lack thereof being what they are. So that sucks for Ohio, but I think that's kind of par for the course. So I think you're going to have to, ready or not, be the developers, and then just hope that you can hang on to more guys than you lose and continue to develop teams that way as best you can. But, yeah, it's not an easy thing to do nowadays. It's very difficult. As soon as a player gets hot, you almost start to dread that phone call from LSU or whoever you expect could come knocking for that star receiver or defensive back or whoever. I mean, we saw with Caden Jenkins last year. Mm-hmm. I mean, and I hate to keep using Baylor, but it's just the example that popped in my head. But here's a freshman, and he's playing pretty well. This team's not good. What's the first thought everybody has? When's he going to Texas or to Alabama or to wherever? So even those schools have those same issues. But, yeah, especially in Ohio, you don't have the money to compete, and that's what it all boils down to, along with the platform. And in that case, it's going to be few and far between that you're actually able to hold on to guys. So it's a different world in many ways for those smaller schools, even more so than for the bigger schools, and not in good ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Garrett, are we going to have? Are we ready to make a major announcement about Puck Around and Find Out?
I mean, we can.
Yeah. Are we going to do it tomorrow?
I'll record one tomorrow.
Okay.
I will record one tomorrow.
Craig, are you excited about Garrett's Puck Around and Find Out?
I don't know what it is, so sure.
No, Garrett's going to do a quick little, recap of or preview of what's coming up in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And maybe, we'll continue this when there's hockey news. Garrett can hop on and feed the hockey fans of our channel, which are few. I get it. Or maybe not as, but again, it's the summertime. We're going to try some new things out. I was just talking about special teams over the CFP era, for God's sakes. But Puck Around and Find Out will debut tomorrow.
Okay.
And then Jack is insisting that if Garrett gets to do one, that he gets to do one too. So he's going to do one on what do you call it? Kicky ball? Soccer.
Footy.
No, I think that's Australian rules football. Yeah. So, yeah, soccer. He's going to he talked at length today about the UEFA Champions League, and I heard about Dortmund. I remember that word. That was
a German team.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I knew that beforehand. He said that. He's like, that's a German team. Like, where would you think that Dortmund would be other than Germany?
I don't know. Turkey or something. I have no idea.
I mean, sounds very German.
I do know they're from Germany because I've read about them and know they're very successful and a part of a very competitive German league. And that's great for Garrett and the puckheads out there that they're going to get a little taste of some ice hockey as well on the channel. We're obviously going to be not strictly, but mostly college football. But a little variety doesn't hurt, especially in the summer months.
Yeah, no, it's it just jumps up on you. So we've had some news today, but it's good. When we come back, John McClain of the Houston Chronicle. This is 365 Sports.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Welcome back. John McClain, NFL Hall of Fame writer, with us in his regular segment. John, mini camps are underway all over the NFL, where the veterans and rookies get to see each other for the first time. And it is, it's the Underwear Olympics, but it is where contract talk kind of comes to a head. And more quarterbacks and people are getting extended. But again, like another week, no Dak extension. We had Jared Goff last week. Who do you think is next? Is it Tua or is it Trevor Lawrence?
Let me say something first, Paul, about Baylor. For the first time in my life, I watched Baylor softball this weekend with my good buddy Gary Horn from Waco and Baylor. And we watched every game they played in the regional, and I want to congratulate them. I remember when Tom Stanton, that was 20 years ago, hired Glenn Moore to be the softball coach, paid him a lot of money. And people said, my God, how could you pay that kind of money for a softball coach? And he's done a tremendous job, and I hope they beat Florida. Now, Tua Tagovailoa, Trevor Lawrence are the quarterbacks that I think will be taken care of first. I think Dak Prescott will go right up till the season. If they don't do it before the season, they'll have to do it after the season. Then they'll get in a bidding war. So I think all three will have extensions or new deals by the start of the regular season. Because the longer you wait, and you know this, Paul, because remember when they could have signed Dak 2 years before they did, and they ended up paying even more? Stephen Jones said, yeah, we should have listened. So the longer you wait, the more it's going to cost. And I think the first one to sign will be Trevor Lawrence, and then Tua, and then Dak.
John, no, OTA starting up here. Tank Dell being at practice, or I guess at the workouts was notable after accidentally being shot. I know it wasn't a close call per se, but just what a scary situation. Just what's kind of been the reaction to Tank Dell and that, potentially close call out in Florida.
First of all, Craig, if you got to get shot, that's the way you get shot.
Yeah, right.
Hadn't slowed him up at all. We watched him going full speed today. Now they're not in full uniforms. They can't put on pads in the off season, but to see him out there running routes and catching the ball from C.J. Stroud, we knew he'd been working out. But still, he's from Florida. He was an innocent bystander when a 16-year-old got in a dispute and pulled out his pistol, shot people, and it's amazing that they weren't killed. And when you hear it, like anybody being shot, but especially one of your best players whose season ended in the 11th game with a fractured fibula, there's a huge sigh of relief. And the Texans with Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and Stephon Diggs, and then tight end Dalton Schultz, who was re-signed, other than the 49ers and maybe the Lions, there's not another team that can put out a group of four like they can.
John, the schedule was released last week. How you've been at this a long time. How do you assess how it looks on the surface? Because again, so many things change from year to year. You can look at it right now and look like, oh well, they have a pretty palatable schedule early on, and then it gets a little tougher in the middle. But who knows, right? But what do you think about the Texans' schedule in a season where they'll have more expectations than they've had in 5 or 6 years?
They've gone from playing the last place division, the NFC South, with their crossover game, Arizona, at NRG Stadium, to playing a first-place schedule with 5 division champions and 11 games against teams that had winning records, and their crossover game is at Arlington. So it's tougher. They should be better, but it's going to be so much tougher. The last time they did this, 2019, when they won the AFC South, beat Buffalo in the playoffs, and blew that game at Arrowhead Stadium, they came back and played the first-place schedule. The first 4 were killers. They started 0-4, fired Bill O'Brien, named Romeo Crennel interim coach, and his first game was Jacksonville, and they won. So it's going to be tougher. They know it. One of the things, when you play as many great teams, great offenses, and great quarterbacks, that's why they signed 14 defensive free agents, re-signed 4 of theirs, and drafted 5 defensive players. I'm writing a story tomorrow for HoustonTexans.com about their secondary and all the changes it'll undergo, and primarily because of who they're playing.
John, I think we probably asked you about this before, and I know that the Texans were busy this offseason as far as cornerbacks go, but is there any interest, do you think, in the former Baylor star and Houston native and Xavier Howard? And for a guy like him, whether that's a yes or a no, what's kind of the timeline like for a guy like that right now, where it's this weird part pre-training camp, you're an older corner with a formerly huge price tag? Like what's going on his end of things, do you think, or his agent's end of things right now?
Guys need to figure out, Craig, that if at their age, when they've made as much money as they did and they're not as good as they were, sometimes it's hard for them to come to grips that nobody's going to pay what they want. And Xavier Howard is one of those. And there was a lot of talk about him coming to Houston. They signed two guys, Jeff Okuda, 3rd overall pick 3 years ago, C.J. Henderson, 9th overall pick. The Texans is their 3rd team. Both of them have been huge disappointments. Miko Ryans told us today he doesn't care what they did in the past. Their slates are clean. And they drafted Maury Lassiter, 2nd round, their first pick. So they don't have a room for a guy like Xavier Howard. He and his agent going to have to figure out. He's going to probably end up with a base salary of about $1 million with a lot of incentives that he can achieve. But I think at this point, he needs to just make sure he's somewhere before he started training camp. Not everybody can be like Stevian Clowney, who has been basically a mercenary who doesn't sign so close to the regular season.
Yeah, does he just hate training camp?
Well, everybody hates training camp, Paul. He's just one willing to lose money to avoid it because he's made a lot of money, but certainly not what he could have made as the 1st overall pick in 2014. Had he signed an extension, the Texans offered $75 million, but he wanted over $100, and they were already paying J.J. Watt $100. You can't pay two guys as edge rushers $100 million.
John, have you read much on the Jaden Rashada suing Florida situation?
Oh, I have, because it's such an interesting story, and I wonder how much of it is true. But a year ago, or whenever I first started hearing about it, I was like, oh my God! But now so many things have happened. You're like, that's not surprising.
Did you ever think we'd see the day where a college coach would get sued for making a promise that he apparently couldn't keep to a high school recruit?
Well, first of all, they didn't get it in writing. That shows you when you got guys that age, they better have better people representing them, because it's going to come down to each other's word. But the sheer numbers that they were willing to give that to him is just mind-boggling. And he's never done anything to merit it. And it just shows you kind of how crazy NILs are and college football is. If the kid's making that kind of money, and you tell him, hey, you're not putting out, go over there and run 3 laps after practice. He says, no, sir, I'm going to the bank. I get another $250,000 check I got to deposit.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy money for a guy who has not played much at all still at this point in his college career, but looks like he's going to probably end up with most of that money he was promised as a result of this lawsuit. We'll see on that front. John, any feelings on the Astros these days?
Craig, you picked the wrong day to ask me because they played a pathetic game last night, the worst of a bad season, up 6-1. Framber Valdez is rolling in the field. Never given up more than 2 home runs in a game in his career. He gives up 2 3-runs and a solo in the same inning. They lose 9-7 to one of the worst teams in baseball. And every opportunity I've had today, beginning with my TV spot on the local Fox station this morning, I have been blasting them a new one. And everybody says, oh, there's so many more games left. And I judge them game by game. And right when they've been playing so well, they lose to the Angels. They don't have Ohtani and they don't have Trout. It was just pitiful.
John, but they're only 5 games back. Most of the West is beset by injuries. You know, the Rangers don't even have close to their full lineup. I mean, there's still time, or do you think this is a team that needs to make a couple moves to the lineup?
No, I think they got Luis Garcia, who won 15 games 2 years ago. He's coming back after the All-Star break from Tommy John surgery. Lance McCullers is throwing bullpen sessions, but I don't know if McCullers, who's had so many elbow issues will ever come back. I've been saying for years he ought to be a closer, not a starter. But they got a lot of pitchers who are about to be healthy. For some reason, they're bringing Jose Abreu back from their rookie league team where they sent him because he was awful. And since he left, it's not him, but they went on a winning streak. They went on this pace that was like they used to, and they pulled within, I think, 4.5. They're very fortunate. The Rangers have been mediocre, and the Mariners have been just a little better than mediocre, which means any one of the three can win it. I still think it's going to be a very, very interesting race. And I know the Rangers, the Rangers weren't great regular season last year, but it just shows you can do what the Rangers did last year, still win a World Series.
Absolutely. John, thanks a lot. We'll talk to you again next week.
Guys, my pleasure. Thank you very much, and good luck with the Baylor softball team.
There you go. John McClain, Hall of Fame writer with us. Craig, I know that you said the website was not working for you all during the Off the Radar to give some college baseball scores. Do you want to run through some of those real quick?
Yeah.
I've got them up here right now. So, Garrett, this one's for you for doing such hard work today.
Okay.
I'm sure you already know this, but LSU throttled number 11 Georgia 9-1 today in the SEC.
Yeah, I saw that early on. It's been a very disappointing year for LSU baseball. I mean, I thought they would be better. When you lose generational talent like Paul Skeens and Dylan Cruz, it's hard to come back from that. But I thought they would be able to. You got the star pitcher, his name's blanking me right now, from Alabama, came over. He did pretty good. Tommy Tanks did pretty good as well. But I think watching Tommy and Mazzano and them, I think they struggle with stepping up and kind of becoming the leaders of the team that they lost last year. And ultimately, that's what got them to where they're at. It's one of those things. They're going to be fine, but it was nice to get a win today. It definitely was after the rough season they've had.
You're not replacing Paul Skeens just like that.
No.
It was freaking sick, man. I mean, I watched him last year, and all that, but to actually see him on a major league mound and throwing triple digits with ease and movement and mixing his pitches up, and yeah, he's a freak. Pittsburgh's got them a real ace in the making, and he's just hitting it on right out of the gates. I mean, he's not going to take a long time to get where he needs to be. If he's just going to get better and better. That's the scary thing. He's already very, very good with the array of pitches that he has to select from and how hard he throws it. So we're going to be talking about him and his game for a really long time, I feel like.
Yeah, and enjoy it while it lasts, Pittsburgh. Enjoy it while it lasts, for sure. Number 9, East Carolina beats Rice 12-4, and these are the ranked games. And number 10, Florida State beats Georgia Tech 12-9. I just thought I'd mention that. Again,
this is the year, right? They're going to finally win the College World Series.
No, I'm not. I don't believe. I just when it happens, it would be great. We lost Mike Martin this year, so it'd be a nice tribute to finally do what he tried so hard to do and just ran up against the wall every single time. Miami topped Louisville 8-5 in the ACC tournament. And in the Big 12, 2 games done, 1 game in the top of the 4th. The 2 games that are done, Kansas tops Kansas State 2-1, TCU over West Virginia 5-2, and right now in the top of the 4th, UCF leads Cincinnati 3-0. And let's get those other SEC scores for you, Garrett, so you can start scouting out. South Carolina beat Alabama 10-5, and Vanderbilt leads Florida 2-0 in the bottom of the 2nd right now. Ole Miss and Mississippi State is tonight, and in the Big 12, Texas and Texas Tech is tonight. So that should be a really interesting game between Texas and Texas Tech. Again, the Big 12 kind of overall a disappointing year. If you look at the rankings, it's like, dude, of the 25 teams, like 19 are SEC teams, and I'm obviously embellishing there because they don't have 19 teams, but like the whole conference is in the top 25. Yeah, I'm not even like I don't know. It's the SEC and the ACC and some other people. Yeah, it's like it's just a monopoly almost. And no, there are some ACC teams there as well, but I just saw that the other day and I thought about it in passing, but to get all the way to the postseason and have it still remain that way, I mean, you talk about a sport where there's the haves and the have-nots and where all that extra money, like
shoot, yeah, in football it's going to matter when you got $40 million more, but the way that trickles down throughout the athletic department, especially in an era where you just buy players now, that's going to give those athletic departments, not just I think we just think about the football part of it, but man, if you can suddenly pay baseball players full scholarships, like not everybody's going to be able to do that, but guess who will be? The team's got the football program that has $50 million more per year coming in than the other teams that you play to, and they don't need all of that, so that's going to, slide down to you at some point. So, yeah, I mean, and LSU is already one of the better athletic programs in the entire country, but, they're only going to stand to get better and better, and just the SEC as a whole in baseball, just really impressive how solid they are throughout the rankings and just overall. So, yeah, ACC's got some stuff to say about that as well. But, yeah, there was – I don't think, but maybe – was there one or two Big 12 teams, and then one of them was Oklahoma.
Oklahoma.
And Texas maybe at the end.
Oklahoma, Texas, and Oklahoma State.
So there's one, really.
Yeah, there's one. Yeah,
so
there's one.
Really one.
But, look, in the top 5, it's Tennessee, Kentucky, Clemson, A&M, and Arkansas. So, then Oregon State, North Carolina back in the ACC, Oklahoma Big 12, but SEC, East Carolina.
Let's count the SEC teams.
Okay.
Tennessee, Kentucky, Texas A&M, Arkansas, Georgia, Mississippi State, and is that it? Okay, so 6 teams, and then Oklahoma and Texas. So, I like I said, I embellished a little, but South Carolina just dropped out. That would have been 7. That's not too shabby. I mean, that's like football, like 6 or so teams in there. But, yeah, when you first glance at it, you're just like, damn. And I just wonder how that's going to be moving forward. I mean,
ACC has 7.
Okay, well then, I don't know that I guess eye them the same way I do maybe the SEC. So, yeah, they deserve a lot of credit as well to have that many in there. But, yeah, those two are taking up well over half of the rankings just between the two of them.
And the University of California system has 2 schools, UC Santa Barbara and UC Irvine, both in there. So, good for them.
And no, because your football program stinks and your basketball program stinks, but your baseball team's good. No, that doesn't mean you're getting a spot in realignment because baseball doesn't make any money.
Yeah.
So, that's great that your baseball team's good, but that is not going to be the deciding factor in you getting a spot somewhere if you're one of those schools looking for a spot. I just want to say that because I see a lot of, like, our volleyball programs made the playoffs, and I'm like, that does not matter.
That is only one of those things that if you did move to a new league, the league is like, oh, well, that's nice.
Great. Yeah.
That's great.
It's like all of a sudden we'll hear a lot, I'm sure, about swimming and diving in the SEC.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there's some of that anyways, but even more so now when you add a Texas or softball with Oklahoma and Texas. Like, I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about that. Now you can pad that, but yeah, it's not normally what you lead with. No.
It's like the bread at a restaurant. Like, you wouldn't just go to the restaurant to eat the bread.
Yeah.
But if the bread is good, you're like, oh,
and
that's nice.
I'm not disparaging those sports by any means or really disparaging people who want to be proud of those sports, but it's just like that's not moving the needle in realignment. That's all I'm trying to say is your terrific soccer program or whatever. It's pretty much football, and then, basketball, and then more football is kind of where we are with college and the big picture. So, that's a nice little lineup, and I wonder what the Big 12 in baseball. I think I actually had an idea for a segment on this past year and all the championships that were won and how many of them were won by Texas and Oklahoma. And, like, historically, like, swimming and diving, Texas has had, like, they compete with, like, 3 teams, and they're also one of the best maintained and well-coached programs as well on top of that.
I mean, they're just feeding the Olympics.
Yeah, they're an Olympic feeder system, like you mentioned. And that's why they would have fit with the Pac so many years ago really well, in part of why they would have fit well, but those Olympic sports. But things like that'll be going away. And what does that look like for the conference? And I know the immediate thought for an Oklahoma, Texas fan will be, you're going to miss us winning all those titles. And that's not how I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it more of like, who the hell's going to win all these titles that those two aren't winning anymore? Like, that's going to be part of the fun is, like, is Utah, like, dominant in a bunch of – are they, like, really good in soccer and, whatever else? I don't know if there's anybody rolling in that's, like, across the board as good as those two programs were in various sports. So there's a huge void, not just in football, which I think you can more easily manage and make up for because there's a lot of quality teams. Basketball, fine. They're not going to really miss much at all. But everywhere else, there's going to be some feeling of like, oh, shoot, they're not here anymore. And who's going to win these titles? So, yeah, I might put that together for one of these upcoming shows, just a little glimpse at that.
Yeah, absolutely. That'd be a good one. All right. When we come back, the top 5. This is 365 Sports.
Cars priced right, day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McClain County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas-raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Hi! Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5. I hope you enjoyed that entrance because I just tore my ACL. Today, we're going to talk about the top 5 year 1 coaches I am most excited about. Why me? Because this is the title of this segment. And I am Paul Catalina, and I get to make the decisions. Presented, of course, by Texas Beef House. Go to TexasBeefHouse.com. The link will be in the description to this. But these are the top 5 year 1 coaches I am most excited about, or curious, excited, one or the other. Number 5. Willie Fritz at Houston. This is a guy who has certainly earned his chance to prove it at the Autonomy 4 level. He's done great at Sam Houston State. He did great at Tulane. He brings a coaching style that is respected by all and a program that needed just a change of attitude. Not knocking Dana Holgorsen, but it clearly kind of worn thin there in Houston what was going on with Dana and that program. Plus, not totally convinced that Dana loves the way that college football works anymore and might just go wind up being a coordinator or a position coach somewhere and be happy with that as he rides out, or take all his big pile of money and go fishing. Wouldn't be surprised either way. But Willie Fritz's offense will be fun to watch in Houston. His attitude that he brings on defense will be fun to watch in Houston. And the fact that he's a new coach in the new Big 12 should be really fun to watch as the new 16-team Big 12 kicks off play this year. Number 4, Jeff Lebby at Mississippi State.
This is a guy I'm familiar with because he was here at Baylor under Art Briles as the running backs coach and has moved up the level ever since, becoming one of the most respected offensive coordinators in the country. He left his alma mater, Oklahoma, to go to Mississippi State. I'm very curious to see if he can recapture some of that Mike Leach offensive magic. And, of course, he has former Baylor quarterback, a guy he's never coached before, but now we'll have Blake Shapen taking over. Very intriguing to see what he can do at Mississippi State in the toughest conference in America right off the bat. It might be a little bit of a struggle early on for him, but I think that kind of wide open offense is what Mississippi State needs to run, and they might be able to jump to the front of the line if he can install that high-flying offense quicker, because it certainly worked under Mike Leach. And don't get me wrong, Jeff Lebby is no Mike Leach. No one is a Mike Leach, but he does run a wide-open offense and should be fun for the quarterbacks to run and attractive for quarterbacks to come to. Mind you, this is a guy who's coached Dylan Gabriel at multiple places, and now Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma, who's taking over next year. Not to mention RG3, Nick Florence, Bryce Petty, and all the great quarterbacks that they had at Baylor. Seth Russell, I didn't forget about you. Hope you don't watch this and say, oh my God, Paul, my dear friend forgot about me. Number 3, Sharon Moore at Michigan. This is an almost completely new roster at Michigan when it comes to the starters. They had a ton of guys graduate and go to the NFL draft. Didn't lose a lot to the transfer portal, and the guys they lost you probably wouldn't kick up a fuss about. Now, he does have EA Sports cover boy Donovan Edwards in the backfield as one of his running backs, but he's coming off a season where, again, he fell into the background with Blake Corum a little bit. You've seen him make big plays. He should be the driving force of the offense, but they did lose Roman Wilson and Blake Corum and J.J. McCarthy, and they don't know who their quarterback is going to be. But Sharon Moore stepped in during tumultuous times at Michigan last year and helped them stay the course on their way to the national title. If not for Sharon Moore and his steady hand, Michigan is probably not hoisting that trophy, because one little loss would have derailed the entire thing. Number 2, Brent Brennan at Arizona. This is a guy who worked his way up from San Jose State and is very well thought of in the coaching profession, but is taking over a very unique situation when it comes to Arizona. He inherits a great quarterback and a great wide receiver in Fafita and McMillan, but he is entering into a new conference. Arizona's just off their best season in forever there in Tucson. So he comes with lofty expectations and hope for the future for Arizona as they move into the new league. But I think he's a great fit there, and the fact that they retained their 2 best players on offense makes me confident for the future that they can really do some things at Arizona under Brent Brennan. And number 1, Kalen DeBoer at Alabama. Nothing will be more interesting to me this season on how you replace the legend of all legends. Look, Zeus didn't step down as the head god of the Greeks. And I know that's not the proper terminology there, but basically you're replacing Zeus, dude. You have a gigantic amount of expectations. And Alabama fans will not know how to deal with the new world of college football where automatically things kind of go their way. Now, is he going to win there? Probably. He's won every single place he's ever been, and he is fantastic at coaching. But now Alabama does not have that Nick Saban shield that they had that kept all the talent in-house that they normally wouldn't have gotten. Even Georgia loses guys because they're not so much guaranteed. Now, they're the new kind of Alabama with Kirby Smart and have that layer of protection, but it's thinner now with the 12-team playoff, with NIL, with the transfer portal. Nick Saban was able to ward a lot of that off because if you played for Nick Saban, you were probably going to the NFL and going to get your shot. That is not necessarily the case anymore, although Kalen DeBoer will put plenty of players in the NFL. Just ask that Washington roster last year, but it's going to be very difficult to equal the dominance that Nick Saban, the Zeus of college football, rolled through Tuscaloosa for the last near 20 years. That's going to do it for the top 5. Craig and I wrap it up right now.
All right, there we go. Craig, I don't think you saw my entrance. But I think that's going to be a thing I do for the summer. Is I'm going to find a different way.
Backflip?
No, not yet. That will build to that. We'll build to that. It's not ready. It's not ready. In the fact that I've never done one, never attempted one, and no one's ever asked me to do one.
Yeah.
So, we can't make any promises, but we'll we'll build to.
Well, it is Olympics coming up. We're going to have that this summer, right?
Yeah. No.
So we'll have plenty of those to just talk. You can learn from the best.
I could maybe do different strokes.
Maybe so. That'll be nice extra content though, right? The Olympics, at least something to watch this summer. I was thinking about that. Like once basketball and hockey end, it's pretty much regular season baseball, which is fine.
Yeah,
but it's nice right now to have options. That was the one thing about the Mavericks moving on and just getting down to the Final Four. It's like, oh dang, there was games like every night. That was kind of fun, or every other night, and now it's so spread out. But part of the deal. So, yeah, you work on that backflip. We'll see if we can't get that done by the end of the summertime.
Yeah, we'll see. I don't think I can belly flop in because we don't have a pool, but that's
get one of those little plastic
little kiddie pool,
backyard kiddie pools.
Yeah, just come on in like a 1920 swimsuit on and and belly flop in. All right, that's gonna do it for us. Tomorrow we've got a couple guests lined up already. Winter will explain House versus NCAA and all the problems that will now arise or potentially arise if the settlement is ratified. And Colby Newton, who wrote a book about the history of the SEC and how they've doubled down on football to make themselves the football conference and build that up. Very interested to talk to him. And probably John Talty of CBS Sports. He'll talk all college football issues with us as well. Not to mention who else we might get. Thursday, we've got Doug Rohan from Rohan Law to talk FSU and ACC. And we also have a guest, Mike Walsh from Onnit. They're a company that does NIL trading cards. So that's coming up this week.
All right. Good deal.
So those are the things to look forward to. Thanks to Edgar Thompson, Mike Frank, Craig Smoak for Off the Radar, James doing our social media, Emery, Jack, Garrett, and to Smokey for sending us guest ideas while he is convalescing at home. This is 365 Sports. Don't forget about 365 Sports tonight, and please like and subscribe.